We have two Miatas. I grew up, one of my dad's cars when I was really young. He had a red Miata. We used to listen to Randy Travis and cruise around. So
that's pretty. The Randy Travis part is pretty cool.
The Miata part.
I've got a bone in my body that dislikes Miatas, but I don't really fit in them very well. I don't know. It's my leg. I'm more leg than torso, so it just doesn't suit me very well.
Dude, I've never heard Randy Travis and Miata mentioned in the same sentence.
Welcome to Oil and Whiskey, an Ironclad original. I am Josh Henning.
I'm Phil Gerber.
I'm Jeremy Gerber.
Welcome to Oil and Whiskey, an Ironclad original. Today's guest is the CEO of Griot's Garage, Nick Griot.
Hey, you know what one.
Yeah, dude.
Felt it.
You know what I was thinking? I was thinking after being at Columbus
that I had no COVID.
Yeah, we know that. We're past that now.
What were you thinking?
I think we got it on the gas. There was a particular vehicle there.
Well, we've got time for an on the gas.
There was a particular vehicle there that we were quite fond of.
So we're doing
Let's
on
do
the
it.
gas.
Let's do it.
We're doing on the gas.
I'm doing an impromptu
Right
on
now.
the gas.
Yep.
You missed out on it.
I did miss out on it.
Well,
got to
let me
watch a lot
fill
of
you
baseball.
in. As I describe it, I want you to close your eyes and visualize the
Can you do it in that monotone?
badassness of this. So the Hot Rod Garage was out there, they're out of Oklahoma, right?
Yeah.
So talking about on the gas and bringing the heat, they had a 63 split window Vet out there that was super duper badass. It was all like kind of Italian inspired European kind of design and a totally different take. It was such a fresh look.
There's no pictures. I spent a while when he was talking about how cool it was. There's nothing on their Instagram.
I just kept going back to it. It was so cool.
I wonder if there's anything on Eric Black's Instagram.
He was
Eric Black
responsible for it.
Yes, he did the renders. Well, somebody's got to have pictures of that thing.
Continue the description for those who weren't there, like myself.
Yeah, I get it. You would think that concept, Corvette's kind of a sports car to begin with. It's not really a muscle car, so it was a brilliant concept and brilliantly executed. The dash, it still screamed 63 Corvette, and you think about how iconic that dash is, but to be able to completely remove it and do something totally different, yet still have it very much feel 63 Corvette, was pretty damn cool.
It was amazing.
Didn't have the double hump.
Not really. No, I mean, there was some, they paid kind of respect to it, that it was kind of sort of there in some respect, but otherwise completely different. Hard to put it in words.
It was,
but it would be great if there was
it would be like
an outlet for people to
if Aston
to
Martin and Chevrolet collab together, like even how Jason was talking about it, the thought process was kind of like if Chevrolet was going to do a European show car model to kind of gain interest in the American market. Over there, the styling they would have done had Porsche 356 mirrors, had Jaguar handles, Nardi wheel, OG Nardi wheel.
And then LED lights, like strip lights in the headliner that illuminated the whole interior, which was like the highlight of the car. Yeah. It just worked so well. Everything worked really, really good on that car.
Yeah, you always hear about people talking about, they want to build a gentleman's car. This is the one that nailed it.
And then it's like a fendered Model A coupe with a 302 and a 700 R4. And you're like, that sucks.
Yeah, this is
a wooden shift knob, though.
Yeah. There are some pictures popped up on Good Guys. You probably got to dig a little bit.
Yeah, non-existent.
See, that's the problem with cars like those. They tend to fly under the radar because it wasn't
Didn't
loud and in
cool
your face.
Scoops and carbon fiber.
Right.
And, yeah.
It's just one of those things you'd want to own and drive.
Well, anybody that was at Columbus,
you saw
absolutely saw it. The Hot Rod Garage, Jason and them, they did an amazing job on that car. And if you weren't at Columbus, you missed out. You should have been. But go check out.
I'm sure he'll be around. That car will be around for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Keep your eye out for it. Kind of a light blue metallic 63 that you can't miss it.
Yeah. Hot Rod Garage Inc. They are the ones that do the gathering at the Rock car show.
That's right.
I was talking to him about it. It's coming up in October. Told him that we were going to try to do something this year. That'd be really good to go out there and maybe just do it as a fun trip.
Enjoy ourselves.
Just enjoy ourselves.
A non-work trip.
Non-work trip.
Recreation.
Jump in something and drive it out there.
Let's do it.
They do a big tour. He was telling me about the area.
Which rock is this precisely that you're
It's in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Yeah. So he said it's not what you would think would be Oklahoma. It's in
a large rock.
I don't know if it has anything to do with the rock.
It's just
I just think, we'll find out when we get there. Yeah. But go check out Hot Rod Garage Inc. on Instagram. Check out their 63 split window coming to a show near you. I think he's going to be at the Triple Crown.
He should be.
Yeah. Kick-ass car. Nick Griot is the CEO of Griot's Garage, founded in 1990 by Nick's father, Richard. Griot's Garage is a renowned name in the automotive car industry, offering top-quality care products and services. They also provide educational resources and workshops to empower automotive enthusiasts. You can learn more about Griot's Garage at griotsgarage.com and on YouTube and Instagram at Griot's Garage. Nick, welcome to Oil and Whiskey.
Welcome, man.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
I'm stoked to be here with you guys. Yeah, cheers.
Cheers, man. Awesome to have you.
Got my special Glencairn, and I pulled out a special one for you guys.
I love it, man. Some Rock Hill Farms, absolutely at the top of the list, right? We ranked that thing.
Ranked number one last year on the season.
How about
the
that?
highest rating. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to pop this bottle because we get like no rare bourbon out here in Washington because it was state run. And so like all the private liquor stores are starting to build their rapport with their distributors. So whenever I go out to our manufacturing plant in Indy, I check a bag regardless of how long I'm going to be there. And I usually bring maximum 5 bottles home, and walked into one of the stores like right by our warehouse, and nobody's buying Rock Hill Farms right in this like, warehousing sector. So like I am buying that bottle. I have not seen one of those for 3 or 4 years. So I bought it, flew it home, and like on the flight, the whiskey must have like gone up into the head. So I had to open it, even though I was going to stash it for a while. So, got to drink those.
Yep.
You got to
drink them.
God, that is a long journey. It makes you enjoy it even more, though, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's a story behind it. But the fact that you found that sitting on the shelf, dude, that's pretty.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's pretty damn cool.
It's a good find.
Solid treasure hunt, at this point.
The thrill is in the hunt.
So I know you're getting ready for the races coming up. What was today like? I know you're probably running ragged.
Yeah, I'm, this whole month of July, I'm probably in the office 5 days, some for work, some for pleasure. So, when I have these days, it's like, it's full bore. So we had a staff meeting today, and that's something that I lead. And then just finishing up some of our presentations for some of our major customers, our auto retail customers. They start thinking about what they're going to put in their stores right now. And so we've got to bring all of our newest and best ideas to them. So I'll get back from Wisconsin on Monday at 10, and then I'm off to Missouri at 6 a.m. Wednesday. So it's just, I am running ragged, but that's the job, and got to get through this period of time, and then it'll just be the next period of time.
So are you heading up to, I remember I ran into you last year up at Elkhart Lake for the Vintage Weekend. You're not going up there this coming weekend? You racing?
Yep. I'm going there tomorrow. So the, up at Road America, it's the, I think Brian Redmond WeatherTech Challenge. And last year was the first time I went and raced 2 cars, McLaren M6B Can-Am car. I sent you guys some photos of that. And a Formula Atlantic, which is like a Formula 2 kind of, the best guys in that series are the guys that get pulled up into Formula 1. So those are the 2 cars I'll be racing again this year at Road America. I'm really looking forward to it. It's one of the best events I've ever been to for both racing, my family, and just like being awesomely big, but Midwestern personal, as opposed to some of the West Coast stuff where it's just a bunch of tech guys and their Ferraris that are great, but they infill too much. They want to be seen versus going to a place like last year. I think my best Midwestern experience was one of my kids was crying at the table. This little lady comes up and she's like, "Would you like me to take him for a walk? Hope you guys enjoy your dinner?"
That's how we do it in the Midwest.
It's awesome.
We're all wearing camouflage, so nobody can be seen up in Wisconsin.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is a great event, though. And the Can-Am cars are wild, and that whole like concourse they have and the parade. I mean, they definitely know how to do it up there. That entire town is just geared around the racetrack. Pretty cool.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. A lot of history up there.
I don't want to disparage the West Coast events by any means, because I grew up going to the show that my dad founded the business by prospecting at in Laguna Seca and Monterey. But the way that the whole town is like based in the history of a race, and they all like are excited for you to come, is a different vibe. Whereas, Monterey, there's plenty of, the Monterey Peninsula is gorgeous. There's the Pebble Beach Golf Course. There's Big Sur. San Francisco's right up the street, and you're annoying, right? Guys are going through stoplights, revving their Lamborghinis and doing burnouts in this quiet little beach town. They don't like you. So it's definitely a different vibe.
That was a beautiful area. Remember we did the road tour there, but the biggest takeaway was that little
Giuseppe.
Yeah.
The little squirrels.
The squirrels.
Yeah, you can fuck with those little squirrels up there, man.
Thousands of them, and they're like so people friendly, like they want to be fed, so they're just on you, climbing your leg and everything like that. It was a crazy time. It is a beautiful area though, but I can get what you're saying. Even when we were driving through, there was like 7 or 8 cars on a road tour. You kind of got those looks of like, here we go again, a bunch of sightseers,
fucking hooligans.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can see the Prius and Tesla adoption pretty strongly there. So you start putting unburnt fuel onto their pristine little roads, and they're getting real pissed off.
Yeah, we keep it real here in the Midwest. I mean, they got Can-Am cars and NASCARs and Trans Am cars just tearing down the main drag in Elkhart Lake, just race fuel burning, and it's cool.
Fucking awesome. So
that was wild. That experience for sure.
You talked about your dad at the racetracks and prospecting and stuff like that. Take us back to how did all this thing start?
Yeah. So there's a great story, and it's definitely I won't like turn over every rock, but my dad was always into cars. He was restoring cars in his home garage when he was a teenager, and worked at a restoration shop that still exists when he went to CU Boulder in the early 80s. Went home and became a race instructor at Jim Russell Racing School, doing open wheel instruction, and wanted to go pro. Very hard to do without a big bankroll and somebody behind you. And my grandpa couldn't care less for cars. So he was kind of hapless, but he met my mom, and she had a dress business, and he ran that for her. And she quit that when my second brother arrived, and my dad, got some advice from his dad to say, hey, you need to do something related to cars. And I think the catalog model is a great model. This is 88, 89, pre-internet. And so the prospecting element that I described was him essentially going with self-return postcards to all these cars at the Monterey reunion, putting them under people's windshields and building a mailing list from, are you interested in a catalog of the finest tools and garage accessories and car care available? And so he built a mailing list and then had to design a catalog. And
it's a unique approach.
Yeah. I mean, I think he knew the products that he was going to do, but he didn't know anything about cataloging outside of what, my grandpa had taught him from his past experience. And so, building a mailing list is important. And back then, you could rent lists and kind of buy based upon overlapping interests, some names. And it was a 20-page catalog and had tools that he had sourced from Europe. So we went over there and became the exclusive U.S. distributor for a couple brands that still exist, and one that we actually still sell. And from there, he sold cabinets and floor paint and padded creepers, a bunch of stuff that people thought he was crazy for doing. But the landscape back then was you had like a Corvette catalog, a Mustang catalog, these very specific spaces where you'd go buy stuff like porcelain signs and, varsity jackets for your Corvette. And he brought all that stuff together in one space and really became, quite successful very quickly. And then, was like to the point where he was pulling in my grandma from a real estate job to take phone calls and just grew and grew and grew, and then eventually wanted to improve upon the chemicals that he was selling and started looking for third-party chemists that would help him mix up products that he was really proud of. And from there, that just continued to compound. The product offering grew. He ran out of space, and both my parents grew up in Southern California, and they didn't want to raise their family down there. And so we ended up moving up to Washington State in 94. And from there, we had enough space to have a light manufacturing area in 35,000 square feet of warehouse, and quickly grew into a position where we were shipping as much to New York as we were to Florida and San Diego. So we had to relocate our distribution and manufacturing to Indianapolis, and we're still headquartered up here, but a lot has happened, and we've expanded into every major auto parts chain in the country. We still are completely vertically integrated in our chemical manufacturing with a team of chemists, quality control team, all the manufacturing, bottling, labeling, and distribution under one roof in Indy. And then over here in Tacoma, it's an event center, and all the creative, all the the content, photography, videos, and accounting and management happens here.
That's awesome.
That is, man. How did that evolve into such a high-end brand? It seems like you guys immediately went to market as being very, very high-end. I remember you guys back from when I was a kid, and it would have been easy to jump in and be like a Turtle Wax or any one of those guys doing it.
It was very European.
Yeah, it just felt like really fancy. Even as a kid, I remember looking at the ads and stuff, and I'm like, that's some high-end shit right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the tool brands are Facom, which is a French line, and USAG, which is an Italian line. And Facom was the tool provider for the McLaren F1, which was the supercar of the early 90s that everybody, was unbeaten in performance for so many years. And then USAG was the provider of Ferrari F1. So these were commercial tools that had relatable, or I would say dream cars and dream jobs associated with them. And from a quality perspective, they'd be on par with a Snap-on, but you can't get Snap-on tools unless you're in the industry and you're in the trade.
Sure.
So he was selling tools. We just saw a Bring a Trailer auction for one of the toolboxes he used to sell that went for 20 grand. Wow. And he was selling that for 20 grand in the early 90s. So there were definitely some really lustful price points, and the cabinets that we sold, the Lista boxes. It's $5 grand for a 36 by 36 6-drawer setup. And, you can stand in them, you can sleep in them. That's how he marketed them. And chemicals were a lesser focus at that time, but it was really setting your garage up with the very best stuff. And I'd say the world at the time was more conducive to being able to stock cabinets and ship cabinets and, inventory 1,500 SKUs of $100 wrenches. So, we had that ability, and that's what built the business early on.
Do you remember that first catalog that he designed? You said he built the mailing list. Do you remember how many people that first one went out to? What was the mailing list?
Oh, it couldn't have been a lot, but that Rolex reunion was, I think now it's probably 20,000 cars, let alone, the people that don't have cars they want to show. Maybe that's a little high, but there was a lot of prospects there, right? And
wow.
So it must have been, a few hundred to a few thousand, and that, would be enough to kind of get you going and get some orders. And then, as I mentioned, kind of rent a list and go poach those guys that were on the Corvette only catalog, or like Car and Driver and Road and Track back when people actually used to read those magazines. And you could borrow those lists, you could buy those lists and rent them or advertise in those catalogs. Again, this all predates the internet, social media, when now people are getting their news and reading about cars 4 weeks before the magazine hits. So, you're going to show me different photos of it?
Yeah.
That's not a great value proposition anymore.
Was he doing catalogs yearly or quarterly or what?
He was doing them quarterly. So like, and then I think you'd have a holiday. So about 5 times a year. Now we have 5 seasons a year. So in those seasons, we'll have different drops. So we'll have up to 17 drops a year on a catalog. Now
you're still doing print catalogs shipped out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's still an art to it. It's, I mean, this is a laugher, but like Monday, our circulation manager, she was like, okay, we just got a postage increase because the USPS has a 10-year plan to solvency. I was like, that's the biggest heaping load of shit I've ever. And so, you had to get creative. And the world we live in now, you can kind of intermix your touches with people. Like we can touch somebody twice a day in Instagram or on YouTube. And you don't want to like, suffocate somebody because there are brands that do that. But we just have to be more clever in terms of when we're shipping them and just how we monitor the success. But there's no question when a catalog drops, we see its effects right away. So we know that they're coming to us.
There's something to be said about that, like having a tangible item in your hand. I mean, I'm old school. I still like getting a good old fashioned catalog.
Yeah, I got one not too long ago. I mean, we were talking about the other day. You have one, the audio catalog.
Yeah.
The hi-fi.
Right. It kind of like takes you, you're almost caught off guard by like, oh, this is pretty damn cool.
It's, you want to sit back and you want to look at, some receivers or these speakers or something like that. And, your vintage audio or high-end hi-fi. There's something refreshing about seeing it, and it's got a description and it's got a price, and then you can go right down and there's the competitor and there's the next thing and whatever. Yeah, there's still something to it. It's cool to hear that you're still doing that many of them. As you're growing up through all of this, how early on were you like from the get-go like, yep, I'm doing this shit for sure, I love this, like I want to be in the business, or how did that come about?
No, definitely not. I mean, I saw my dad working, and he used to write every single word in the catalog, and I think that was another part of the success, like why people think they know him personally. They still write him letters, and he picks up the phone, and now a lot of that's my job too. I get a handwritten letter, and I'll return it in kind, and try and make somebody happy if they're dissatisfied, or just validate that, hey, we heard him. But it was him writing things, a lot about my grandma, his mother-in-law, and my mom's like destroyed Suburban. And so he'd do that late at night after he'd put us all to bed, and, he'd be up till 2 a.m. So he's working really hard. And I was always around cars. Like he always had a cool car. He didn't have quite nearly the collection that he now has, but we'd ride to school in cars. And now as an adult, having kids of my own, I realize how impactful and how in love I was with those cars. But, it was always just, okay, you just graduated first grade, like get a job. And so the most natural job for me was our warehouse. And that, you started pushing brooms and doing the grunt work. And a bunch of my high school buddies and I used to just work in the back and do prep stuff. Like we'd wrap things like floor paint in shrink wrap. So when they got shipped, the UPS guy would, no matter how many times he punted it, it wouldn't
it would survive.
Yeah, it would survive. And then at the end of the day, when all the boxes were ready to go out, we'd go stack pallets. And, at that point we were shipping, 2-ton floor jacks from Italy. And so, you never wanted to stack a pallet when jacks were coming through the line. But that was the job for the teenagers, for the lowliest guys, right? Go break your backs. And so that was kind of my first exposure to the brand. And then as I got older, I started going into our retail store and actually having to learn our products and learn about detailing and be credible as I could be for being 16 or 17. And I learned that, okay, like I know the products, I know how to use them. And I was making like $8 an hour and decided I was going to start my own detailing company and make $25 an hour. And so
fuck you, Dad.
Well, now you taught me the skill,
And I can get it for a discount too. So I've got
Well, the 5-finger discount, I just take it from the garage when I'd run out, because I'm like, oh, I got a detailing job at 8.
Yeah.
I can't go to the warehouse and restock. I'm just lifting it from my dad's garage, and I'll pay him back later. But that was probably the best thing I could have done. It gave me some entrepreneurship. It made me learn my own standard of service. And then ultimately I, had to wake up and be at somebody's house by 8 a.m. and, detail their car with my right-hand man, my buddy that ran the business with me. And by noon, we'd have $200 each in cash. We'd do a couple cars at somebody's house, and we go out on the lake and buy beer. And everybody else was still working till 5 p.m., making half as much money as we were per day. So it was a great gig. And, that definitely has stuck with me. And I've always, that was the earliest time I learned those products. But I still didn't have a lot of interest in the company at that point. I was just kind of defaulting into a car-related skill. And having a high level of familiarity with at least the products themselves, not the guts of the business and where it was going.
So what, from there on, how did you get to where you are now from the detailing business? So
I went to school in the Southeast and wanted to be a doctor. My brother's a type 1 diabetic, and he found that out when I was about to graduate high school. And so I went to a school that was famous for medical research and drug development. That was Emory University in Atlanta.
In Atlanta.
And got, weeded out of those pre-med classes pretty damn quick. So, but I kept detailing. Our fraternity house would have car wash fundraisers. Guess who'd supply the car wash? Guys would get nice cars from their parents and absolutely thrash them. And I'd clean up all their cigarette butts and polish the paint, and they'd pay me in whiskey and kind. And, nice. So it was still there. And then I'd go back for the summers. I'd either detail or work in the store. But once I graduated with an econ degree and came back, and we're restoring or remodeling this place. And it was 2009, granted, right? So all my buddies that were going to be finance analysts were out of jobs. They went to Africa and worked in the Peace Corps after going to Emory.
Great time to be in finance. Yeah. In 2009.
Yeah. There weren't a lot of my friends that had that fast track, that started strong. In fact, for me, it was definitely okay, I believed I was qualified to do a lot of jobs. I didn't know jack shit. Right. But I did care about this place. I was interested in this building. It was an old Coca-Cola bottling facility. And my dad had a great vision for it to, had a big yard where they had all their trucks, and we turned it into an event center. And I was helping him pick carpet and just come to the site every day. And my first boss ended up walking in. He was a commercial real estate broker, and said, "Hey, I need somebody that I don't have to pay to come follow me around until you're worthy of getting paid." And took about 6 months for me to get fully hired and start making money in commercial real estate. And my dad was just like, "Yeah, go do that, because I don't want you here. I want you to make sure that that isn't your path, that you aren't going to like something else other than this company." And so that was a good push from him, right? Go learn something else. And I really, really liked that industry. Have a lot of good friends that I still keep in touch with. And, we have 2 pieces of real estate that we have to manage and treat the same way as I was learning to do in that business. Found a few of the ethical loopholes that were present in that space, and didn't really like that at all, but ended up landing with some pretty ethical guys and did a lot of deals, and helped me buy and spend stupid money on cars. And then, eventually it just kind of kept compounding where in that room, people started knowing, what my dad did, or, this big kind of boiler room of brokers where you put the phone down and the guy next to you in the cubicle is listening to who you just called, and they call him and tell him a better lie. And they would ask me like, hey, you're from Griot's Garage. Like, I've got something wrong with my car. Can you come look at it? So I'd like, I'm in a suit and tie. I'm trying to look my best. I'm 23 in an old man's business. And I'd go down to parking level 7 and crawl under a car with this guy who made, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and could have just asked his mechanic, but asked me instead. And like, okay, I'm the car guy in this office. And part of that industry is you're like going to somebody like your shop for example, saying, okay, Roadster Shop, I'm going to try and understand how your business operates, and I'm going to go advocate on your behalf. And you have to do that 5 or 6 times. So you have to find 5 to 6 different businesses that you represent. And ultimately, I knew the most about Griot's Garage, like what they needed, what they wanted. And I had so it was like, I'm dividing my energy over 5 different things. I'm clearly still the car guy everywhere I go. I don't want to do this anymore. And I went back to my dad's office and said, hey, this is enough time. It was 6 years on, right? And so I had plenty of time to figure that out. Said, I'm coming back to work for you. And the way he retells it is he's like, fuck.
It's like he's moving back into the basement. Is that kind of how he was?
Yeah.
Damn it.
I was going to sell this business. At that point, the business is like 24 years old. We're on a hot streak and we're growing. And he wanted to ride it out for a few more years and sign off and go do nothing, which he would have deserved and does deserve for all the work he put in. But
you just spoiled all those plans, huh?
Yeah, I threw a wrench in it for sure. But I think now that he is retired and I'm in the seat, it's a totally different dynamic. But at that point, I definitely messed it up. But he said, okay, your first job is you're going to go drive our truck and trailer around the country and establish a national events program. So I had 4 months to get a canopy, a TBD trailer, a Dodge dually, and start doing events all over the country. And our first event was in Colorado, Good Guy Show. Absolute disaster, but we made it. And, we did 6 events this year. Now we do probably 50. But I had to get my Class A CDL. I had to learn how to, double clutch upshift old, semi trucks and do all of that. And it was like, okay, that's what I'll do. I'm down for the cause. This is what I love. You tell me what I got to do and I'll do it.
It was probably a disaster because you got assholes like us. Like we were just at the Good Guys show and we failed to bring virtually any detail supplies. You remember that?
Yeah.
And the fucking cars are filthy dirty, right? And they're sitting inside and we're like, shit, dude, somebody's got to run over to Griot's.
Yeah.
And
tell them it's an emergency. We got to have
this. We need some detailing supplies bad.
Just give them like a credit card, like a check.
Keep it on file.
Yeah.
Well, now we're better prepared for that. But like at the time, we didn't even know how to load a trailer. We got 3 miles down the road and realized the thing was like bouncing and we had put too much in front of the axle. So it was I got some advice from like a truck driver friend. It's a brand new Dodge dually pickup, right? Cummins, Allison. And he tells us like, you got to take out the, oh my gosh, it's going to fail me. But like, you got to unclog the water, right? The water that pulls out of the diesel fuel.
Mm-hmm. The DPF filter.
Yeah. And like, so we tried to roll out at 8 a.m. We get to like Ogden, Oregon, which is like the northeastern corner of it. We're going to, we're trying to make it to Colorado the next day. So it's midnight. We're refueling. I pull this thing out. It snaps off in my hand. And diesel fuel's just like pouring down onto the ground on our, 300-mile truck. Oh, shit. What is going to happen? So I put it back in there. I jam it into a point where I think it's like sealing up, get down the road or start driving. And all of a sudden there's just like this black smoke coming out of the back of the rig and covering our brand new trailer, which has just been detailed, just been ceramic coated. And like, okay, we got to pull over. It's midnight. We fucked something up big time. And sure enough, like this diesel fuel's just pouring, not even like barely going to the engine, pouring onto the exhaust manifold. and just smoking up all over the brand new trailer. And we had to get towed at 3 a.m. in the morning, slept in a cockroach motel, dropped the truck off at a Dodge dealership. They fixed the plug. We drove to Colorado the next day at 9 a.m. So that's how our events tour started. I was like 4 months into the job. Just,
Dude,
all right.
It is funny to hear your story because, you know, this was a family business and it is the exact opposite. Like me and Phil, we made my dad be the truck driver, right? We put him on the road with the toter home, and it's the same story, except he would just destroy the fucking rig. Like the stories of the shit, he'd end up in some residential neighborhood with this, like, I don't even know what the thing weighed, but like driving up on a curb and sinking the thing. There's pictures of the thing, like it went through the street where he went on over a manhole cover in like a subdivision, right? And the truck is like buried, about to like roll over. Dude, there's pictures of it up on a wrecker being hauled. There's, you know, blowouts and yeah. So we took a different route.
Several phone calls from people who were cut off going down the road or got coffee thrown at them.
Flicked off. Yeah. Good for the brand.
Great for the
Oh,
brand.
yeah. It builds character, man. I mean,
for sure.
You get resourceful as shit when you're on the road though, and something breaks down, and you can
gotta
piece
do
some
it.
stuff
You gotta
together.
live. Yeah, you know, you don't have a choice. You gotta, you're remote. You're like trying to make sales in a parking lot somewhere, and you know, windstorm comes up, destroys the canopy. That's what happened to us in Columbus. Our huge canopy got flipped over onto the roof, ripped the welds off the side of the trailer. It's just like, that's another week on the road.
Yep.
And you got to deal with it. But that was good seasoning for sure for sitting at a desk and doing spreadsheets. I'll say that much.
Quite a different, yeah. It was thrown in the gauntlet.
That's beneficial to know it all. You know, you've driven the truck, you've swept the floors, moved your way up the ladder.
That was always part of the plan. You know, you can't run the business unless you know every part of the business.
Of course.
And I don't want to do IT. I struggled enough with Zoom today. So, but luckily we have the ability to hire people that enjoy that now. But every other aspect, you know, you got to spend time. You got to get in the weeds and go and learn it. And the guys that drive the truck and show up at our events, they're the front line. They're the happiest people on planet Earth, but they're working the hardest job. There's no question. They're away from their families. They got to be happy because every person they meet is an opportunity to expand the brand. Yeah, it's tough for sure.
So where did you find your sweet spot and make your impact on Griot's Garage? I mean, you're growing up, you're getting in there at a young age, and now you're running the show. What did you do differently?
Products, 100%. We have a great team that we were able to hire, just in terms of our chemists that, you know, we kind of, I missed this part of the story, but we were buying, you know, the production from, we bought a production or manufacturing from a company who we were licensing some of our formulas to that we had developed. They were peeling off, they were going to make paints and coatings, so they couldn't make anything with silicone. So we bought that. And then on top of that, we had to invest in chemists and a lab. And after I came off the road, I was under one guy in our product development department because, again, I'd been working with and selling these products for now, 15 years. And he ended up leaving, and there was nobody to kind of default to. And that being said, we had some good, complementary staff that are still with us that are excellent. Some are more pro-oriented and have been responsible for some really incredible products, and some are more junior, and they are, again, coming from the same progression of you learn how to sell, you then go into detailing, you have experience, you develop those bad experiences out in the products. And so when I was leading that team, we kind of were willing to invest in more infrastructure and more projects that really, in that time, this is not my own doing alone, but that's where I had the most fun, and those products that we were working on as a team were really making an impact and changing people's perception of our chemicals from more of an enthusiast brand to one that, hey, really could achieve professional results, have a spot in, some refinishing spaces, and high-end builders shops and the tools and accessories to complement that. So that is by no means like my own doing, but that's where I think everybody saw, okay, if you can lead that team, that's pretty damn critical. And now we got to fill you out and teach you the rest of the business, so that you can lead it and put a plan together on how that's gonna happen over a series of years.
Do you remember what when it or what your dad said or what you did when he was like, whether he said it to you or not, when you realized like I've done it, and he said like, yep, finally, I think you've got it, to take the next step, or for him to kind of move back even further?
Yeah, I think it comes from that same like confidence of it in the products. Like when you have your hands in it and you work it, you go back and forth, sometimes 10 times to get it right, sometimes 70 to 100. And then you go show that to, our biggest customers. And so the difference between what I'm doing now and what I was doing in commercial real estate was you'd go and like sell somebody information that you had gleaned from somebody else. And you were just kind of trying to be, the little squeaky wheel until they said, fine, just like find me a building to buy, or I'll lease that space if you'll stop bothering me. But you were kind of just always prodding, right? You didn't have anything to sell. Here we have a tangible product, happens to have my name on it, but I also know what we've compared it to in developing, what we're trying to make it be, and to be able to like advocate that so clearly and honestly on a big stage, such as an AutoZone or an Advanced Auto Parts, and know that, my dad's sitting over there in the corner. He doesn't have to say a word. He's seeing me do it, and then they buy it. It's like, that's a big deal. But it's when you're kind of trained in that like desperation commission only mode, and then you have something that's actually good that you can sell, it's easy. And I think that was the lights weren't too bright, right? I could go do it. And I was passionate about it and had my, hands in it. And so that was when he said, hey, I don't even need to be there. You've got this. You can take it from here.
That's awesome.
That's badass. Looking back on it for him, I would assume so. He probably thinks it was a phenomenal decision to not bail at a early age. I mean, he must have been in his 50s, maybe 60s. And now the thing's, I'm assuming, has grown exponentially from the point when he was like, yeah, it's time to unload this thing and I'm going to go buy a couple race cars and sit on the beach and then go fuck around with my race cars.
Yeah, I mean, he's not old by any means. He's 63. So he's still got plenty left to do. And again, he's gonna go wheel some race cars this week with me. And
nice. That's
been a great thing to be able to do with him. And but I think, yeah, he would say it, and like, you look outside the world right now and okay, there's some uncertainty, but 33 years in business, you've seen a couple waves, sure, right? You've ridden them. So you don't know when to step off the top floor of the elevator or when you're going to catch the falling knife on the way down. So I think he kind of had probably the more of an existential challenge. Like, I don't know if I'm going to know what to do if I don't do this. And so there's a secondary part to that story, because he's still doing everything related to cars, but there's another little business venture that's a lot lower stress. That's a restoration shop that my brother actually runs, that we have down the hill, that we're doing some pretty cool stuff in. Not roadster shop level yet, but definitely a pretty damn cool setup. But I think that's more what it was. Like, it's not a bemoaning that he should have sold at a certain time. It's more, I have to know that I can leave it in good hands. And so I'm only one part of that, to be sure. Like, we have an incredible team of people that complement me. Again, IT guy, maybe being one of them, but also more like an operational backbone that has made us a pretty sophisticated business. So we have, crazy lunatics out here dreaming and wanting to do more car wax and high-end tools. And then people are like, hey, in reality, that costs money and we have to like keep the lights on and operate. So if we didn't have that, like I'd be struggling a lot more. And leading with passion is only so much, but you need a complementary team, and we definitely have that. So I think that's part of the comfort level of him leaving as well, is that for whatever I'm not, there are people in the building that can help fill that in.
Yeah, before we get into you telling us more about the restoration shop, because I didn't know anything about that, I want to give you a compliment and tell you how good of a job, tremendous job you've done in the marketing of your brand and of your company to all markets. Obviously, we've been, at Good Guys and in the hot rod side for since you started getting on the road and running the truck, but in exotic car and supercar world, you're renowned, you're known. I mean, we talk to people that, customers that have some of that stuff, and they've got that stuff in their garage. All the way down to my son. My son's 16 years old. He's got his first car. He's a detail freak fanatic now. So he's coming to me. He's like, hey, I want this Griot's Cannon. And I'm like, yeah, I know those guys. That's fine. We'll put it up. Put your list together, maybe for your birthday. And he's putting stuff.
And you're like, dude, this stuff's really fucking expensive, and I'm about to do a podcast with him. So like, write it all down.
And but for a 16-year-old kid that could just search anything, he made his own decision and said that your foam cannon was the foam cannon. Kit, that's the one he wanted, and that's the stuff. Hey, I want these rags are different than other rags. I want to get this too. Oh, and they've got this tire shine that's different than other tire shines. I want this. So hats off to you, man. I mean, we look at it from a marketing standpoint all the time, but if you can reach a 16-year-old kid all the way up to, a high net worth guy that runs in completely different circles, that's pretty broad spectrum.
Oh, yeah.
Man, you better get on that quick because he might not have a car in the next week.
It's a great brand, even for me. Like, people give us detail supplies all the time, and you've got 50 different quick detailers in the cabinet here that you never know where the stuff came from. And not just like saying this because you're on the podcast, but honestly, when I'm wiping a car down or something, I'll reach right past all that stuff because there'll be like a Griot's quick detailer and a bag of your rags. And it's associated with being very high quality. So you kind of trust it.
Feel the difference instantly too. Yeah. No bullshit. I mean, that's just, so hats off to you on the marketing side for sure, let alone the products.
Well, and look, I mean, I was your son, right? Like I was that age seeing like, and what I would reiterate to him, and I would love to talk to him because we used to have like a young entrepreneurs kit where that was always part of, my dad's push and just his dad's push. Again, serial entrepreneurs that just said, hey, go do it yourself, go figure it out. And when you're 16, you want independence and, you can earn things your own way and you don't have to have a car to do that. One of the things that was most lucrative for me was going to golf clubs because golfers are dirty. And there was one within walking distance of my house. And I got my license suspended like right after I turned 16.
You sounds very similar to my son. Yeah, I think you.
How many times
I had to get driven around to remote jobs and find the local jobs so that I could save up for stuff to do to my car while I was parked in my garage. But, and that's the reality. Like I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was just doing car stuff.
There's something else you were thinking of. I'm sure it's the same thing. Myself.
That's what you needed the car for. Yeah,
but you need the car to go there. Yeah, so it all starts there. But no, I think from a marketing perspective, you kind of heard me say it. Like my dad's voice was in the catalog. People thought they were talking to him. They could relate to what he was saying, and he had high standards. But he also lived a life that was real. So that your wife drives her car and cares for her car differently than, you have a car that conveys you to work. And then you have potentially, if you're lucky enough, and some people in America, we have, more cars than people, a third car that you treat differently. That's your baby. How do you approach that? The thing that links all these things together, they have similar systems and similar paint, or they have paint, right? But you always are going to have glass. You're going to have some interior material. Hopefully you have some paint on your car, not begrudging or bemoaning rods or anything like that, but they still have wheels, they still have rubber. So you have to find a way to appeal to all of them. And then to your point, it's the generational divide that's between my dad and I. Like I've got to show him the digital age because I've got to build the next round of customers. He knows the catalog space and the people that appreciate the tangible things. And with both of us together, you know, I talked to him 4 or 5 times a day. I was in his office all day today, bending his ear about, you know, gears that we're going to select at Road America. But he doesn't have to manage the guts, but he's got great instincts and he still cares about this company. And I do want to inspire the next generation of folks. And I know that I like American cars better than my dad does. He likes European cars, but then I'm warming up to Japanese cars that I never liked before, and knowing like, okay, you're just finding all sorts of markets within there, and can create aspirations. And ultimately, like, you guys build some pretty high-end stuff. And to think that the guys that are buying it are going to be able to fix all of it and wrench on it, probably not, you know, a great conclusion, right? They're going to pay.
And I wish they could.
Trust me. I mean, I got a good story about me panicking over like the most minor thing, because I know where my skill stops. But one of the things that a lot of people can do is clean their cars and present them differently. You can swap your wheels, you can put stickers on them, but you know, if there are 2 red Dodge Chargers driving down the street and one has well-polished paint, the other one's oxidized and looks like crap, it doesn't matter. You know, one of those guys cares for their car better.
Yeah.
Like, that's the perception that I'm going to have. And so, you know, you can't go mess with a lot of modern ECUs without a lot of high-end knowledge. You know, you put a cold air intake on a modern Duramax and it performs worse unless you chip tune it. So you can't even do the basic stuff.
Right.
To do.
But you can keep it clean.
You can't keep it clean. So I think that's a way that a lot of people spend time around their cars, and particularly more modern ones.
I just find it interesting. I would love to hear your dad's view or opinion or his mindset. I mean, you're talking about a guy, like you said, that put the kids to bed and sat there and wrote the lines and the stories and the articles and stuff in his catalog, right? So he's trying to connect with his consumer on a very different level, right? And then fast forward to now, and you're selling a foam cannon like via TikTok, on a TikTok video of spraying, you know, a Subaru BRZ or whatever down, you know, and that's boom. Somebody sees that video goes viral, and that's 2 opposite ends of the spectrum for the same company.
Yeah, trust me. I don't have TikTok, but,
you're still connecting with them on the same core.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're creating.
Yeah, I know.
you know?
It's just,
it might. Yeah, but and you know, it's come full circle now because I'm the same way. Like, I should be at the office until 9 p.m. every night, but I go home and put my kids to bed, and then I turn back on. So I'm right back there. It's not the same. There's definitely some writing and some copy, but it is more like now it's scripting, right? It's storyboarding about those pieces of content that we're going to put out. So it's the same but different. And I mean,
yeah,
when you can blend them all together, that's a pretty powerful, well-rounded marketing message that, yeah, I don't know where the TikTok thing is going, data goes, but like, foam cannon seems pretty benign relative to what else I've heard.
Yeah. Well, you don't know like what that foam cannon's spraying out of. You know?
well, that's
Yeah, I don't know how somebody else is going to manipulate it, what basement they're falling out of, but
as long as they buy it, doesn't really matter.
Well, I mean, the generational thing is interesting across the board. I always wonder, you know, maybe this is your secret sauce or something, but how do you combat, like, all right, you've got these other competitors who are out there and they've got like wild ass, like bright colored bottles, and it's all like nano bead technology with ceramic nylon woven polymers and this and that. And then you've got Speed Shine in a clear bottle with just like a simple logo on it.
That's the exact. That's why.
Well,
It's
right, but I'm the guy that's like, fuck all that. That looks pretty. That's probably some pretty high end stuff right there.
I was wondering the same thing. How do you figure out when to stop innovating but still be on the cutting edge without getting gimmicky, I guess?
That's a hard thing. And I mean, you know, I think that we're a pretty there's a lot of companies in our space, including some foreign companies that make excellent products that are kind of small enough that they slip under the radar. But with regards to regulatory stuff, but first of all, you got to know everything that's out there, what is real and what isn't. And I think that from that perspective, you can build kind of a case around these companies that are out there. And there are many that are legitimate and are good people to like, you know, kind of the Stallone, Schwarzenegger, like kind of iron sharpening iron with regards to Rambo, Commando.
Rambo whoops Schwarzenegger's ass.
Oh, man.
In any scenario.
Careful.
Man.
Any scenario.
I like them all. I'm not a Ford guy, not a Chevy guy, not anything guy. But so when you see a brand that you've kind of profiled a certain way, you one have to give them, from my perspective, I've got to buy it. I've got to know what it is, right? I've got to test it. But you can start to see some desperation slip into some of those things where, oh, we've been left behind. Like the recent example of ceramics is like, you know, somebody overstating what the product's capable of. And it's a brand that hasn't launched a new product for 5 years that's been selling their wax for $7. And then all of a sudden comes out of nowhere with no developmental progression and says, this is a graphene ceramic infused. They don't even know what the fuck they're saying, right? They just say it all and put some hologram on it and then sell it for $17. Yeah. And to me, that's the curly-toed loafer guy that I fight, who sits up in an office and doesn't wear, you know, T-shirts and jeans to work because he's not washing a car. He doesn't care. Yep. You know, he's just managing, you know, profit margins and watching trends and watching data. Whereas ultimately, you know, the power of a brand and the long-standing nature of this one and what we've always done is not overpromise. It does what it says it's going to do. And if you don't like that, you're calling Richard, you're calling my dad via either the call center, or you're probably going to get him if you just stay on the line long enough, where you're writing him a letter and he's going to call you back. So I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm paid to do, is answer pissed off people. So I'm not going to misrepresent anything to them. We're going to give them something that works. And sure, there's something that can probably do incrementally more, but hopefully they don't overpromise that it can go that much further. Otherwise, they're not getting that bottle we bought. And this is a consumable good. So I have to earn your trust once and keep it. And if I fail you, then I've got to earn it back some other way. And the reality is you're coming to a person who cares about it, who wants you to be happy around your car. And I'm not going to, you know, tell you that this is something. I mean, we make fun of this. Like we did an April Fool's joke a couple years ago, and, you know, we were riffing on, oh, we're just going to add unobtainium, like the mineral from
I hear that sounds really good.
And like we're gonna charge it. We got a federal grant. Like we're just gonna build jackasses, and we're gonna fool you, right? And like that was like what we made fun of. So we're not even close to that. And I would say there's some really reputable brands that have been around for a while, and some up and coming brands that have good stuff. But if they get too proud of their stuff or they create too much paradox of choice, you're just going to confuse a customer, and then they're going to come back to that simple bottle and say, shit, this is window cleaner. I just need to clean my windows. Yep. You know,
that's how it's a different dynamic when you're wiping down like a $100,000 paint job or you're wiping down your $15,000 truck. I mean, there could be catastrophic results in that situation. So when you're looking at glass cleaner and stuff like that, like I'm prone to grab the one that's just blue and says glass cleaner. Because if it's something gimmicky off the wall, you're like, man, what if that just gets a little bit over the glass and gets on the roof and just prints into the paint, and now I've got a problem. So those gimmicky things to me make me a little nervous. I mean, obviously I'm not like a detailer, but I've been around this stuff long enough. But even this, like all the ceramic coating stuff makes me nervous. There's just too many little gimmicky things in some of this stuff.
You're old school.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Meat and potatoes kind of guy.
Yeah. You know what? If you take good care of your cars, you have a good place to store it, that you may not ever have a need for that. But, you know, on that same perspective, like I'll chalk up like somebody who wants to build their dream car, who doesn't have a shop, and they're fighting money and time. Well, they're going to call you guys, right? And say, hey, I don't know how long you have to wait to have you guys build a car, but I've got the money to do it. I don't have the time to do it. The same applies to like somebody who buys like a brand new Ferrari and says, I want the Ferrari to show people I have a Ferrari. Put everything on it. Put paint protection film, put ceramic coating. How much is that? $10,000? Yeah, I just farted that. Like, just do it for me. So there's this mix between there. And that's what we call the pro enthusiast, where they're advanced users that can use that stuff. But on the back end, there's a very traditional care regimen that has always been true and always been good, but that may not be the same one you apply to, the car you use this way, or the car that you have this. And if you have the luxury of multiple cars, you can have multiple care regimens, which means, hey, there's room for more products, but let's not confuse anybody. Otherwise, they won't know what the hell to do.
It's a good way of looking at it.
It is.
So you tell us about the restoration shop.
Okay, so we have car problems, big time.
I can imagine.
And like there's no like flavor here in my dad's collection and my collection. Is just kind of like what appeals to us. And so we had excess space in this headquarters that Richard was going to use for a restoration shop. And really it was just like a wall about 4,000 square feet. And we had a guy who was our early R&D guy, and he came in and said, hey, I want to wrench on cars. And in that space, we put together some pretty cool stuff. We restored, a Niki Lauda Formula One car, 1975 Formula One car. Didn't do the engine, didn't do the paint, but like reassembled it back here. So we had some pretty light capabilities. And then we hired a couple more guys, and all of a sudden, they want to paint, they want to weld, and they're doing that next to finished cars, right? So that can't continue. And enter my brother, who has been studying abroad and I'm one of 4 kids. 2 of us got bitten by the car bug. The other 2, they don't care at all. And so my dad was like, all right, we're going to separate the powers here. And my brother Philip is going to go down the hill, and we ended up being able to buy the property right next door to us, which was a storage facility. So it was all clear span. And we added a paint booth and like a indoor wash bay and detailing area. So 2 things that we didn't have up in this facility. So we've got a downdraft prep bay, and then a downdraft, or this is where my expertise runs out. But we've got 2 paint booths now, and then the ability to do indoor washing, dry ice blasting and restoration, and then a separate shop that's all fab reassembly. The only thing we don't do is interior, but we started that in June of 2020, and it had been going on back here for about 10 years. And it's all young guys that kind of had come out of, high production, dealerships that had a passion and wanted to, learn and do other things and have some freedom to work on their own stuff. And it's a madhouse. And we've had, since they like started slow and my dad was their biggest customer, now, we've got a wait list and people are wanting us to do, anything from just like getting their car running right. We're not doing just oil changes, but like go through the top end of this motor and fix the clutch, and this 2 full custom builds that, we'll debut our first custom build at SEMA this year.
Awesome.
And it's pretty sweet. It's good to have a sister company right down the hill. We can go pull cars from and say, hey, let's test this metal polish on that old chrome or the fresh chrome or whatever it may be.
Sure.
Let's test it on original 60s Ferrari clear coat or this refinished, stuff that's softer than snot. Like we're gonna find the medium there, and
I don't know about testing it on like original 60s Ferrari paint. Like you must be fairly confident in it already beforehand.
In the door jams.
Or somewhere behind the gas door.
Well, you measure, right? You get a paint gauge, you measure, and my dad can spot refinished cars from a mile away. Like he's pretty good at that, and so I've developed my eye quite a bit. But ultimately, we always tell people, if you don't know if it's original or not, measure. Right? Get a paint thickness gauge and go around there and see what kind of material you've got to work with. Like I learned pretty early on original paint 59 Invicta, just kind of going through this like little crease on the door.
What the threshold is there?
I'm polishing black and it turns brown. Oh shit. I gotta go tell dad because I just
fucked this thing up.
Yeah, I just fucked it up. So, learn some caution, but definitely have some confidence to approach cars like that for sure. But I mean, we need to have that. To your point, we have to have the supercar credibility. We have to have the vintage car credibility. We got to have the modern OEM car credibility. And can we, occupy all those spaces? I believe so. But we can't do it if we don't actually go out and represent it and show it and prove that it can be done.
Tell us about your own car collection, specifically the Lincoln is what I would like to know about, and then get into the Jeep and some of the other cool shit you've got. I know you've got.
I think you've got one of my favorite cars.
The station wagon.
You got some good taste.
That's pretty cool too.
The station wagon's badass.
Yeah, that one's. I mean, the problem, and you guys probably know this, is that you get to like a point with a car where you're happy, and you got this other car that you're already happy with, but then you look at it and you're like, oh shit, I gotta do. What's next on that? What am I going to do after that? Because everything's working. I shouldn't mess with it.
Yep.
But
right.
I'm going to mess with it. So, it started really early. Like my dad, we restored cars with him. That was like our first thing. When we were 15, we got to pick a car that we wanted to restore together. And we have a great home garage, that again has its limitations relative to what can be done, but you can definitely learn a lot. And we spent a lot of time with my dad. And my first car was a 71 Camaro. I still own that car. Interned at a fab shop in high school and worked with guys setting up my gears and doing all that. So I was learning on and restoring cars, since I was a teenager. And ultimately, when I started, making some money in real estate, I started looking at and started looking at other cars that I couldn't get good advice from my father relative to don't spend your money on cars, save it. So
you bought a Range Rover.
No, I didn't do anything.
That's a low blow on the commercial real estate, guys.
No.
If you're a commercial realtor, isn't it a requirement you own
that when you get your
a Range Rover?
No, I mean,
up here maybe.
There are guys that do that, but that's not me. Like I bought a C6 Corvette. That was my real estate car. Nice. When they were debuting the C7. So I bought it out of New Jersey. I was super stoked about it. I drove that thing through the snow. I thrashed on it. But that's a later thing. But the Lincoln was probably the first one since my Camaro that I actually sunk my teeth into and wanted to do a lot of the work myself, and then kind of ran out of time and was making money. So you know how that goes. It just and my mom grew up, so she hated my Camaro. She grew up in Southern California, and the guys that drove Camaros and El Caminos were not upstanding citizens. So she's just muscle cars are not my thing. So I could never convince her that was hey, I put a lot of time and energy into that thing. I love it. But she rode to school in a Lincoln when she was a little girl. And so she always told me buy a Lincoln, do a Lincoln. And when my wife and I bought our house, we got this photo album. The story's been told a few times, but it's pretty damn cool. And it's an old mid-century modern house that was totally a shit show. Should have walked away from that. But historical photo album. The guy had lived there since the 50s, and there's a picture from mid 70s, and he's got two Lincoln Continentals in the carport at the house. He had a white hardtop and a black convertible, and literally closed on the house. Bought a 63 Lincoln 10 days later, and got that thing home. Started tearing it down, and it slowed down a lot because that's the time I was driving around the country. So I was, gone 3 weeks a month. But lots of employees from Griots were coming back to our home garage and just chemically stripping it, kind of doing some really thorough, just storing the parts. And then eventually okay, this thing's going to sit here or we're not going to get it done. And that's when I met Jared Hancock of J. Rod and Custom. and said, "Hey man, I need you to help me get this car to the finish line." And so we kind of cooked up this concept that was a blend of like kind of some of my, I don't know. I mean, pro touring's a thing now. It's not even like derived from any European influence, but I didn't want to like low and slow Lincoln. I wanted something with some attitude.
Sure.
And I think the 430, it can be tuned to make some good power, but you just have a lot more ways you can go with a small block. But I wanted it to be carbureted. I wanted to have like a super tall stall, so it just like really was choky, nasty, bad black bitch. And we started looking at the car together and thought, okay, the front end is going to be open for some interpretation because you got this big license plate frame that kind of indents what otherwise is a really beautiful run of a front bumper. And then you've got space to tub the wheels out towards the fenders. And so we took that space back and got those wheels in there and put it on coilovers. And I don't know if this is a dirty word or not, but Art Morrison helped us do a 4-link. He's right down the street from us. So we put it on coils with a 4-link rear, and Rytec coils fit in the front housing and put big bare brakes on it and as big of wheels as we could. We got a nasty 427 that has 535 horsepower and a very tall, stall, and just it galunks and does burnouts and is awesome.
It's a rad looking car. If you'd have told me that like a Lincoln should have a little chin spoiler, I'd be like, you're crazy. But it looks, the front end of that thing is bitching.
Yeah.
It looks pretty mean, and those cars, that design in my mind hasn't aged at all. Like people still, I remember I showed that car in Iowa, 2016 or 2017. And I left to go to the bathroom. I came back and I actually won your award, the Roadster Shop Style and Engineering Award. That time I showed that car.
It's a good looking car.
And I come back to the car and there's a guy under it. Like his legs are just sticking out the rear end. And I'm like, sir, like, what the hell are you doing? And crawls out, it's Mike Ring Brothers. And he's like, whoever did this exhaust, that boy can weld. Like, he is awesome. And so we started talking. His wife comes over and she's like, oh, I really like this thing. Like, who did your door handles? And Mike's like, honey, those are stock. She's like, oh, that's really nice. Who did the mirrors? Those are stock. Who did the actual? I mean, she must have picked out like 4 design cues that she thought were totally custom that were just as the car was. So I think it's a pretty damn awesome design, and I didn't really chop it up too much. I think it could, return to its stock ride height. Not that I'd ever want to do that. Man, it's nasty.
Dude, I'm guessing Mike Ring was just taking a nap. Like, wait, if he was laying tired, you caught him off guard, and he's like, "Oh, the exhaust! Look at that! Look at that! Yeah, he was just his old ass was taking a nap.
3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, he was
sure
sleepy.
He was taking a nap. Yeah.
Well, that's cool to meet him because, that's another, I mean, that's where the car community is so awesome. Like, there's definitely some competition relative to, there's sanctioned competitions where you're trying to build something, but ultimately you're trying to make your customer happy if you're building something that is their dream. But you start talking about X, Y, or Z and you're totally disarmed. Like the cars are just transcendent.
They really
are. That's probably what's shocking about that Lincoln too. I mean, it's a obnoxiously loud car that's, got a lot of like bling and flash to it and probably costs more than a lot of cars on the road. But I mean, people walk up to it and it's like female, male, young, old. They're just like, older folks definitely have more stories about them, but young people definitely, freak out about that car too. So I had no idea that you'd build a car like that would have mass appeal outside the car community, but it definitely. There's
just cars that do that have that. Phil talks about that with the Miata all the time. It just doesn't matter where you take it. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, kids, young, old. I mean, enthusiasts, people that aren't even into cars are like, that's such a cool
sports car.
They say cute though, mostly, right? Yeah. That's such a cute car.
But dude, a 4-door suicide door Lincoln, it will forever be badass.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's one of those cars I want. I just know
It's a good thing you did a hard top though instead of a convertible.
Yeah.
Because you want to talk
they're
about hard.
they're dangerous, dude. The convertibles, they don't.
Stop.
Yeah,
I live in Seattle, man. I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm gonna speak out loud. It's Tacoma. We're the people that work. Seattle is, we don't talk about Seattle.
Good for the clarification. What about the Jeep? Where'd the Jeep come about?
So you'll start to hear a theme with me, and I think this is like where I know that I'm doing the right thing every day. But cars, to me, there's a sentimental aspect to them that pretty much gets me to start rolling the snowball down the hill. So when I was young, we have a family farm, and my grandpa retired and moved up as far away from humanity and people as possible.
Sounds awesome.
And my grandma liked Jeep Grand Wagoneers. So she had a Wagoneer when I was young, and my brothers would go up. My brothers and I've got two other brothers and a little sister, and we'd go up to the farm. And what was so much fun about that is they'd put us in the back of the Wagoneer, no seatbelts, and we'd just cruise around this little island. And window rolled down. Now I know the amount of carbon monoxide we were ingesting probably has something to do with my mental capacity these days, but.
You're still chasing that high.
Yeah, that's why he built it. They make me feel so good.
Hey, drive me around. I'm gonna get in the back. I want to roll the window down.
Trust me, the Jeep I had enough leaks that I was probably still getting a lot of it. But no, so I always had this like romance about that car, and my family was kind of growing, and I grew up, taking road trips with my dad in cool old cars. We had a 72 Suburban that he restored that we went all over the country in. And so I wanted that experience for my family, and just like a cool old car, but I wanted it to be more modern. And so I bought three actually, and one on eBay. I went down and saw it. I ripped the check in half, was like, I'm not fucking touching that one. I bought another one that I literally said, okay, send me pictures of this and like press on this. Okay. They pressed on the floorboards, finger went through. He goes, oh, okay. I'm presuming you don't want this car. I was like, no, I don't want that car. So I was being dumb, buying these things sight unseen, but I was at least building some space for rejection relative to like, hey, it's not as represented. And then I finally got smart, went down to Arizona, a guy who sells Wagoneers exclusively, not Wagon Master, who I've gotten to know, Chip now, and then also like Jeep Heritage, who I know you guys sell some frames to. Daniel is awesome, and there's a Jeep that I sent you pictures of that we're going to talk about. But I found the right one and started to like, again, just kind of build these things progressively. I didn't want to do it all in one go like I did with the Lincoln. I was like, I've got a 5-year plan for this. And so started fixing everything, EGR valve, radiator, had to like shave the header to fit properly because I had a bad exhaust leak. Drove to dinner, radiator blew up like 2 days after I fixed it. I was like, okay, this motor is just an absolute train wreck. And LS swapped it and put a L96 in there and a 4L60E. And there's a company down in Utah, Novak Jeep Conversions, that sells an adapter plate for a connect and cruise GM setup. And, you got to buy motor mounts from them. And then the transmission essentially like can hook right up to the transfer case that's in the Jeep, which is a good one. So did that, put like 6,000 miles on that thing with a 4-inch lift, and then saw my life flash before my eyes. This couldn't be any more ironic, but like some guys pulling out of a prosthetics area or store on my way home from work on a sunny day. No, it's not slick or anything. Apply the brakes, they lock up. I like skid to a stop as this old man like literally looks up at me, and I've got this, massive lifted Jeep that I'm about to, take off the front end of his car. And I was like, I can't put my family in this car and go to Wyoming or wherever else I want to go. So that's when you guys got the call.
Nice.
Like, we actually explored like linking it and doing it ourselves. Like, and just it was 150,000 mile frame on the car, and like boxing it and doing the stuff where I'm like, okay, Jared's at J-Rod Custom is like penciling shop hours. And I'm like, ooh, we don't even know if we can do that. And it's expensive. Like, I got to go find a solution. And obviously you guys had a great platform, and that was the way I could get, bigger brakes on it and get a better suspension setup. And I think I told you, Jeremy, like I got that thing installed and drove it. It totally like changed my life, because I love that Jeep. I had done everything I could to it. There's all sorts of little knick-knacky things that I could do myself before I had to make that jump. But it truly like, was the best thing I could have done to that,
awesome.
that truck.
Oh, those Instagram videos I saw, like driving through the deep snow, like
so cool,
fresh after getting it done. I was like, that's breaking it in. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a really stupid story from that too. So that was 2 days after I got the truck back. So like we went from a 4L60E while that thing was a rebuilt trans, and it was causing me all sorts of problems. Like my gauges would turn off. It wouldn't link up. Like it was weird. So I went to a 6L80E when I did the frame swap, and that was awesome. The thing like gets up and scoots, and it's kind of silly now, but I didn't read your manual, so this is my bad. And load up the family. It's the 26th of December, and we're going down to Bend, Oregon, and it's the biggest snowstorm we've had in like 8 years.
Perfect timing.
I'm like, okay. Like, my wife's looking at me like, you sure? I'm like, I'm sure. She's like, okay. And I trust you. 2 kids, my dog, roof rack, and start going down. We're going down I-5, and she's like, I want to stay on I-5 and go on this pass because we can pull over and I can, breastfeed the baby. I'm like, okay, whatever. It ended up being the worst decision ever, because it got so fucking sketchy so fast. Like, it's a 2-lane road all the way. It's like a little bit more of a straight cut, but it was white out, and my windshield wipers were freezing. My defrost wasn't working. And then my dumbass didn't realize that I've got manually locking hubs on this new axle, because I've just jumped out of a car where, hey, they lock, right? You hit 4-wheel drive, you're locked up, you're ready to go. So I'm in 2-wheel drive for this whole escapade with, tire, like 4 somethings in the back and a 6-speed transmission. I'm in first and second gear. So I'm like, wow.
Just like drifting everywhere.
I'm all over. I can't see shit. I've got my head out of the window. I'm like de-icing it with my hand, and my wife's like rubbing it dry. Like, it was so damn sketchy. And I get down there and I'm like, hey, what, I called Jared. I'm like, dude, I don't think 4-wheel drive was engaged at all. He's like, did you lock the hubs? And I was like, oh my God, I just drove 500 miles.
All I had to do is turn those little things.
And it would have been fine, and I would have had, all the good stuff.
Man.
But yeah,
that's why we do our Legend series stuff, because you just turn the button now. You turn the knob.
It's electric lock and hubs. Yeah. Completely.
Well, shit. I mean, the old system was all, just vacuum. You could be cruising and just switch it over. You're in 4-wheel drive. You don't even have to stop. Like, it was just boom, right away. I mean, you wouldn't want to do it at like 60, but sure. It was, it was brainless. So and granted, it could have been the kid screaming in the back, or my wife just like viciously staring at me.
It's always easier to blame it on them. I mean, I generally do that with my wife.
It's usually the wife and kid's fault.
It
for
is
just about anything.
You throw a dog in the mix.
Yeah.
I wasn't right, and I'm proud enough to admit that, because it was just like, it was so fresh, and I was so excited, and I didn't even think twice. But I didn't like crash into anything. It's good pedal feel, right? And
sure.
Good car control. So
yeah, it's almost more badass, the fact to be like, I didn't even need 4-wheel drive.
Did the whole
thing in 2-wheel drive.
That good.
That's a good story to tell.
I mean, yeah, and it was fine. Then I had a sunny day the way coming back, and I did put it in 4-wheel drive, and I don't know if I needed it on the way back, but yeah, it was all good.
Fun to have it.
1,000-mile road trip, literally like 2 days after frame swap's complete, and shows the level of trust I have for Jared and his crew. I put my family in it, right, and just go stick my nose in the shit and see what happens.
Those guys built some amazing shit.
They do. Talented dudes, man. I love everything those guys do.
Fit and finish and level of detail is amazing.
And they're right up in your hood, huh? They're not far from you?
Yeah, I mean, they're, obviously we've made some cool stuff together. And they're building another full-size Jeep for my dad right now, actually, that'll be at SEMA. But I just, you can get into these tussles with shops and, whether they be creative or billing or whatever. I've never had that issue, like just right away. I mean, they're people that I can relate with, and then you can see their work and you see where they are working and what they're creating in that space. And knowing, I mean, I really relate to guys that are around my age that have talents that I don't, and we can talk to each other about like, hey, where we're different, and to be able to see what they can do. Like they can take something in their head and make it with their hands. Like it's just something I won't ever have. And not only just appreciating their talent, but they're great people and have always taken care of me when something's gone wrong with the Lincoln. And it's like a lifetime warranty and just great stand up.
That's
ethical.
That's the way you got to do it. I'm sure they're not going to be super stoked about the lifetime warranty announcement on here, but I know how it goes. I mean, dude, we're the same way. It's, with our customers, it's always like, dude, it doesn't matter. If there's something that needs to be taken care of, it be taken care of.
You got to stand behind it.
Yeah.
Well, just being in a position where now, like everything that comes out of my mouth is a potential liability. I'm going to state unequivocally that Jared from J-Rod and Custom has never offered me a lifetime warranty. I've had
you heard it right here.
Yeah, but they know what they built, and they're the best guys to go do it. Yeah, and they'll, if it is like something they've done in error, then it's a different discussion from, hey, I just blew up the rear end because I was doing donuts in our parking lot. So
yeah, that's important. I mean, stuff happens, and you got to stand behind the stuff that you got to stand behind.
You said he's got one of your favorite cars. Which one is that?
The Senna.
Oh.
Is that Barbaro livery or a play on it?
Yeah. So actually, if you guys can see behind me right there.
Oh, shit.
So the race car in back.
Yep.
So my dad's like a huge McLaren nut. Like when he was a teenager, he would go down to Long Beach Grand Prix and take photos of cars through the fence. And he started buying some pretty inexpensive McLaren race cars around 09 and 10, which was a good time to buy anything really if you were looking to buy. And he was getting to the point where he was going, F2, and he wanted an F1 car. Long story short, he was buying Marlboro McLarens, and he had a 1977 M23 that was driven by Jochen Moss. And that allowed him to talk to somebody at McLaren, get a modern production car, and convince them to paint it in the Marlboro livery. And Marlboro livery, if anybody's not familiar, obviously Marlboro Reds, right? But it's a dark red. And they engineered the red that is on that race car. It looks orange, but the TV broadcast in the 70s when they debuted it would pump out a dark red as purple. So they color corrected it essentially with the paint. But when it came through the TV, it was dark red. So in person, it's bright orange. When you're watching, Marlboro with their name over all these race cars, when F1 was cool and cigarettes were cool, and
cigarettes are still pretty cool.
They're still pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if you can say that.
Do not smoke, but like I would love to have that back in. People still die in F1. So if you're a race car driver and you are doing the things that those guys do, the fact that those guys can't smoke cigarettes and have drinks in their hand like James Hunt did, it may not be the best, like if you're trying to inspire kids, but it's more indicative of like, hey, I'm living on the edge at all times. Right. Like, know that about me.
Yeah, so that's what Josh, he smokes, what is it, Newport menthols. And he tells me that all the time. Car? He's like, yeah, dude, he's like, I'm living on the edge. People die from this shit. It's not
never used that.
Yeah, 100% you have. You say it all the time. And I'm like, it's not that cool, man.
It's super dangerous.
Yeah.
You don't understand how dangerous it is. Some people surf, some people skydive.
And you smoke menthols.
Menthols.
Yeah. Well, the car you're talking about is the actual Senna, the street car.
Yep.
And that was a door that was open because of the vintage McLaren cars. And so one of the Can-Ams that we'll be bringing to Wisconsin this week was Bruce McLaren's actual, championship winning car. And so the namesake McLaren, and he drove that car to a championship. That championship series debuted at Road America in 1967.
Wow.
And went McLaren 1-2, like in that race. And they just dominated that year. So it's a big deal for McLaren's history. And so McLaren Racing in the UK called my dad and was like, hey, we want your car for our 50th anniversary. And he goes, okay, how are we going to get it? How much are you going to insure it for? And what other doors are open? So like my brother and my dad got to go tour their, F1 technology center and got to know a lot of the people there. And then, McLaren was having some financial issues and sold him that car, which is a Ayrton Senna raced MP4 7 from 1992. Damn. And gave him an order portal to the street car. So you obviously have to pay for those things, right? But
yeah,
when that door opens, you pretty much have to jump.
Dive all over that. Yep. Yeah, I saw that thing on Instagram like 3 or 4 years ago at, I don't know, it was like a Cars and Coffee drive, and I'm like, holy shit, that's the baddest Senna I've ever seen. Didn't see it again, and then as you're building the Jeep, like jumped on your Instagram, like, holy shit, Nick owns it. Like, it was just the coolest livery on that car. The majority of them are just horrible color combos. I I can say that.
But the Marlboro livery is awesome.
Yeah, and they're linked together. So the race car and the Senna have the same like corresponding chassis numbers. So that was kind of the full meal deal. And I think there's like 3 or 4 other Sennas, right, named after Ayrton Senna that they allowed that color to be put on. But to your point, like, you could pay $1 million extra and have it be bright pink carbon fiber. I don't know why you do it, but you have that level of ability. So, I mean, you do what you want with your money, but I'm not going to tell you that looks good.
You can't buy taste.
Yeah, it can be yours. I don't want that.
Dude, it sounds like you've got the connection, and Phil is really digging this livery.
There we go.
His Miata's already red. So to get the Marlboro livery on, all you'd have to do is the white
part.
Only have to do the white part.
The white chevron.
But I wonder if there could be a collab, like a McLaren collab.
I don't know if you're going to get Nick on board making fun of Phil with the Miata, because he's been at the racetrack. He knows how fast those Miatas are.
I like Miatas. We have 2 Miatas. I grew up, one of my dad's cars when I was really young, he had a red Miata. We used to listen to Randy Travis and cruise around. So
that's pretty. The Randy Travis part is pretty cool.
The Miata part.
I've got a bone in my body that dislikes Miatas, but I don't really fit in them very well. I don't know. It's my leg. I'm more leg than torso, so it just doesn't suit me very well.
Dude, I've never heard Randy Travis and Miata mentioned in the same sentence.
That's Richard Griot in a nutshell, man. Again, you start looking at some of the cars back here, it's like, who are you? And in all honesty, that kind of is what makes all of this the most approachable and gives us that appeal. It's like, this isn't a row of white Porsches or only McLarens. Like, there's a pink Fiat next to the McLaren, next to a red BMW, next to a 79 Lincoln Continental. Like, I don't know the logic there outside of those are all things we like.
We've got to get up there at some point and check all this shit out. I'd love to see this.
Yeah. On that note, though, the approachable part in the Miata, stop fucking approaching me with Miata memes and texts on Instagram? Just everybody, please.
Oh, you're talking about me?
Just no,
don't do
everybody in
that.
general.
Is there a lot of it?
There's a good amount.
How many would you say per
You
week?
mean
It's 10 to 15 a week.
I'm going to say that I'm going to make a
substantial.
challenge right now. If the listeners can get
We're going to edit this part out.
to 100 total memes to fill by the end of the week, when this podcast 100 in a week, every 100 people get free T-shirt.
Yeah.
But we got to have 100 Miata memes directly to Phil's Instagram.
And what is that?
That's P. Gerber.
Oh man,
We can't edit all this out. We can't.
Like you're gonna get.
I get it nonstop. It's fucking horrible.
Yeah, people were
Own it.
people were bragging.
I
on you
owned it,
today.
and then I gave up on it, and it's just still coming back.
I had to walk
lesson
around
in it?
Columbus the whole fucking time, and all I heard everywhere I went, Florida Georgia line.
Yeah,
I
but
heard
you're
it.
proud of that shit.
No, I hate. We're gonna get you on something. Don't worry.
I'm like untouchable.
No,
Now
Yeah.
we'll see. See what
You gotta find
sticks.
the right.
we
little
need to
nugget.
get up that area and check this collection out, though. Seriously, I think it'd be fucking cool.
I'd love to have you guys. I mean, I think just the business itself and like how this headquarters is set up, and really like, I think it's a full cultural center, right? I mean, we have space for 300 cars. We have, we do over 120 shows here on site.
Wow.
We have a rotating auto display that's, square footage that isn't productive within the building, but all of our, locals get to contribute and store their car there and show it off for a month. And then we've got, a small portion of the collection here. And then the shop that's, you walk down a stair set and it's there. And they're the same way. They're working on, CJ7 Jeep, Lancia, Stratos, Di Tommaso Augusta, a C3 Corvette. So it's like they're like a Mark II GTI. There's nothing that's above or below. Like if you love that car and you want it to go to a certain level, they're going to do it. But there's just something for everyone. Like we'll have a husband and wife walk into the back room and the husband goes straight to the race cars. The wife goes straight to the pink Fiat and everybody's happy. And we can kill an hour back there anytime.
That's awesome. Well, we reached the time now where we have to ask some of the standard questions. I'm kind of excited about some of these standard questions. First up, best car movie and why?
Man, I think some of the newer movies they've been putting out are really, really damn good. Like I love Ford versus Ferrari. I loved Rush, but I grew up watching Le Mans with Steve McQueen and like Bullet. Like those two have to be, I'm going to bias it towards Le Mans because the footage was so nuts, and Porsche 917s and the Ferraris at that time, they're doing, 240 miles an hour and people are dying. And I think Steve McQueen says like three things that entire movie, but you just know he's just carrying a stick that's immeasurable, right? And
That's cool.
he's just bad to the bone. So it's not like thrilling and not like well acted, but it's only cars and only racing. And that's the era that my dad like grew up idolizing and instilled in my brothers and I. It's like we're sitting quietly at home watching just essentially footage of these cars making noise, nobody talking, nothing else. Like, okay, yeah, this is acceptable. This is what happens in our household on Friday night.
That's
So
cool.
That's badass.
yeah,
I like it.
Le Mans comes up a good bit. I think that's probably going to be number 3 or number 4 at the end
It's
of
up
the year.
there at the top.
Yeah, it keeps coming up. Well, you talked about it. You had a 71 Camaro was your very first car, correct?
no, well, that was the car restored
Okay.
with 99 high school.
All right. Well, what's your very first car and a story about that car?
So it's way worse, but it's actually,
Sweet.
I don't think it's that bad in retrospect, but it was pretty embarrassing at the time. And then I came to like it, but it was a 79 300D Mercedes wagon. So these are like really popular right now. I think the generation is called W123. They're tanks, like they're excellent automobiles, but the one I got was non-turbo diesel. So it's a 6,000 pound car, totally overbuilt in every way, 73 horsepower. And it had 170, 150-ish thousand miles on it. Couldn't tell because the odometer didn't work. It stopped turning. And I learned how to, like, the passenger door or the driver door was kicked in. So I learned how to do body work. I learned how to pull a panel and do Bondo. Learned how to do brakes. I refinished my first wheel set because I only had, 3 hubcaps on the car. But it was dark green, which were my high school colors. And I could drift it around the gravel parking lot. And one day I was driving to school with my brother asleep next to me, and car dies in the middle of the busiest intersection on our way to school. I'm like, hey, dude, you got to wake up. We got to push this car. And it's a heavy ass car, and we're pushing it over the Midas, and Midas throws an alternator in it, take it home. I'm like, Dad, we gotta look at this thing. He's like, okay, let's just drive it to Mercedes, which is like a 10-mile drive from our house, and they'll get the tachometer, odometer. They'll just see what the hell is going on with this thing. Because at this point, it's been brakes and aesthetics. And we're driving down. We get like 3 miles from the house. I'm driving in his Suburban, and I just kind of start outpacing him. I've got his cell phone in the car, and he doesn't show up in Mercedes. I'm like, uh-oh, what's going on? He gives me a call. He's like, where the fuck are you? Like, I'm on the side of the freeway. I'm in a Popeye's chicken. Like, come back and get me. Your car just blew up. So it threw a rod on the freeway on the way to getting fixed. And he said it was like again, like a World War II fighter pilot. Like, the thing just burst into flames and came up over the hood. And
Nice. Epic.
I think our total investment in that car was like $1,200. Like, it was nothing. We like had spare Mercedes parts and bought brake calipers, and I did the rest of the work. But yeah, that was number one. And call it the Shaggin' Wagon. Did not do any of that.
Yeah, it's got to be running to do that. Well, when's the Pro Touring Mercedes coming then? It's all nostalgia, so a throwback. Or is that one it's like, fuck that one, that was trouble?
I like them, but I wouldn't spend money on them, right? I mean, it's kind of the line for me. Plus, I got a station wagon. I got that covered, and that thing actually works, and my wife likes it too. So we'll stick with that one.
Right on.
What's your favorite car that you have right now in your possession? Out of all of them, you had to give them all up and keep one.
Oh man.
Yep.
It's like asking about your children, dude.
Well, that's easy though. The cars are a little harder.
Yeah.
In your situation.
Can I extend that to my dad's cars too? Because there's one car that I would never. That's his '66 Chevelle, 100%.
Really? Out of all that cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, because this is again kind of goes back to the sentiment. So I was working on that Camaro, and it's like, oh wow, muscle cars are cool. I've only owned like Porsches and German stuff, and it's good reason for that. Those are great cars too. But he bought a numbers matching, but like the worst numbers matching car, right? Like it's got 396, it had 2-speed auto, and like, drums all around. It was just, but it's white on black. So we swapped a 502 in it, did 4 on the floor, disc brakes all around. That same shop I was interning in, we did like a Trans Am rear end, cut the springs. So it's a really fun car to drive. And that's the car I used to sneak out in high school. I'd get like 4 girls in the back seat, my buddy Tommy in the front seat. And he just bought a 67 Chevelle because of how like nostalgic that car was for that couple years of our life where, my dad would travel and we'd just take the Chevelle out and we would
just kill it.
I mean, I would do J turns, and like I remember I stalled it in oncoming traffic one time. I did some bad things in that car, but like it's always kept me alive, even when it has tried to kill me, like for things that aren't my fault. But it's just like it's got no radio. It's just big carbureted 502. Chirps in every gear and simple. And that's all I'd want if I had to pick one. I'd probably have to move to California or something, which I'm not going to do that. So I got to just drive it in the rain all the time.
You talked about J hooks and you talked about other stuff. I want to know. You talked about your license getting suspended. What was your license suspended for?
Oh, that was dumb shit. That was dumb shit. Like one time I think I was late to school and I was doing like 54 and a 30. And then, so that was like one infraction. And then I was driving a clutch, or I was like learning how to drive a manual and was doing a hill start and, you know, had my e-brake, had it in reverse and like bumped into the guy behind me. Like as I released the clutch, so the car lurched backwards. He like broke his license plate frame and called the police and filed a police report. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. Like you're looking at a 16-year-old kid who's sweating bullets. Like there's nothing wrong with your huge Toyota 4Runner on this little, you know, old Volkswagen. So I had like 2 infractions on my license within 3 months and they just yanked it. And they had like done some new things.
Yeah.
It couldn't be more identical to Blaze.
It was, it was not, I was late to school, but I wasn't like street racing or doing anything dumb. I was just panicked. And in both cases, I was panicked and I was a young driver and they probably took it away at the right time just to settle my head down. And
his was 55 and a 30, and then it was a small fender bender.
I feel like kids nowadays, it's not like impressive. They're kind of weak. Like when we were 16, jumps were really big. Yeah. Like, do you remember?
They were huge.
Dude, we were ripping jumps, right? Everybody.
Railroad tracks.
Oh, everything.
Yeah, railroad tracks, speed bumps, going into
Culverts.
retention ponds and then out.
Just sending it, dude. But most
I didn't
kids
say I wasn't doing that. I just never got caught for that.
Yeah, I didn't get caught either.
I was launching my buddy's 91 Taurus off the hills in Tacoma, and there's some pretty.
Lawn jobs were huge. Nobody does a lawn job nowadays.
No.
When's the last time you saw a lawn job? I mean, I'm tempted to start just ripping some to bring it back. You know,
That's as a homeowner.
oh, it's devastating.
I don't want anybody.
as a grown man that owns a home.
What a bunch of dickheads we were back then. A Taurus, though, I will say that era Taurus can much like a LeBaron can take a beating. They will just keep on going.
Tank,
Yeah,
man.
91. Oh man, light blue, dark blue leather interior, digital dash. It was loaded.
Oh yeah, that green digital dash.
91 was a good year. It's kind of like it's the new 1970.
91.
Yeah.
I don't. Nobody said that.
Really?
No, you're trying to
know.
make that happen. That's not.
I have 3 cars from 1990. I don't know what it is, but it just happens to be the year that I landed on for these cars. So
You don't happen to have a low mileage,
Ford
decent
Probe?
condition Ford Probe GT over there, do you?
I do not know. No
Josh is
lawn
on the hunt.
I've been on the hunt for a little Ford Probe GT. Can't find one.
In due time.
Yep, it'll come. What's in your pocket right now? You got to do a pocket dump.
All right. Wallet, Ridge wallet,
Ridge wallet. Carbon Ridge
pretty
wallet.
minimalist. Wife took all my cash, so nothing there.
Front pocket carry or rear pocket carry?
Front pocket. I wear shorts, you know, most of the time. You know, I'm gonna go wash a car, so I can't sit on anything. And I usually just empty my pockets when I get to my desk. But this keys to the castle, another just Ridge thing. I like both these things. The carbon fiber, so like fits in everywhere. I can't leave my desk without that, or else I get locked out of the building. So that's pretty much on all the time. Bronco key. So waited 2 years. 2 years for my Bronco. Love that thing. And knew I was going to talk to you guys about knives.
Oh yeah, that's Benchmade.
Yeah.
Benchmade, bug out, carbon fiber. So I like this thing a lot. It's funny. I've heard a couple of your other guests say like they've just gone through like the $20, $40, $50 knives. And like, I screwed up so many of those knives. Like I started carrying, a utility, just a box knife around, like one with a retractable blade, it's spring loaded.
Yep.
So like that was kind of my default knife forever. And I kept losing them because they're so damn big. I'd like put them somewhere and, you know, I had to like start carving my name in with a little Dremel or another knife. So I'm like, I'm just destroying all these tools. And I finally bought the Benchmade, because two of the guys that I have gone fishing and hunting with in the shop said, hey, dude, you could get this blade sharpened for life. They're right in Portland, like right down the road. So bought one of those, and don't know that I needed to spend that much based upon how I treated knives, but I like the concept of just sending it back. And I mean, the thing weighs like an ounce.
Yeah, that's a good knife.
That's a great carry.
Super light.
Very unwieldy.
You do.
Yeah, that's a good knife.
Yeah.
Last but not least, not last but not least, second to last, best piece of advice that you've ever received.
Okay. Well, I think one of the things that I'm very fortunate to have is two really good role models, and that have been, big part of my life and big part of, I think, where I'm at in business relative to my age, and that's my grandpa and my dad. And every son and father have the moments where screw you, I don't want to listen to you, like you can't be right about this. But I think there's like some transcendent things that they've told me, and probably the very best one is there's three things. They're all very quick, but number one is listen to understand, speak to be understood. And I think that is probably the hardest thing for somebody like me with a go, is to like not jump in front of people and like come to conclusions or interject or interrupt. I used to get kicked out of grade school for that all the time. But I think you really want to take advice from people and then, give something back. And for me, I'm in the middle of it now. I've got folks that are younger than me in the organization that I want to see succeed. I want to have them come up. I want to work with them for 30 years. And then there are folks like my dad who, he's got an image of how things have been and how he made it. But if we can't do that together, we can't listen to each other and then also like speak in a way that we can both understand, we're only going to fight. It's not going to be very fun to be in a family business when you fight. So it's a big part of why we're symbiotic and why it's worked out.
It's good.
Last but not least, I'm going to change this one up a little bit. So you got home.
Hold on.
Yeah.
This will be important to you guys.
All right.
This is my grandpa's mantra. Always have one less drink than that who you are trying to extract information from. So that I think is an excellent business.
That's really good.
We should start trying to do that.
We always have way more drinks than the person that we're trying to extract information from. We don't follow that ever.
That may have been a pointed one. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was pointed.
No. I think we didn't even talk about bourbon, right? We got and
we've got all the time in the world. I was trying to be respectful for your time. We can keep fucking going.
We got a whole nother podcast about bourbon, but God, like it's the reality is like I started talking to my grandpa about how much I knew about the process of distillation and fermentation and bourbon. He goes, man, I never thought I'd have a grandson that knew so much about alcohol. 2 weeks later, I get like this old yellowed paper clipping. It's like the 10 rules of business. And he's like highlighted it double. And it's that line. Like always have one less drink than the person you were trying to extract.
I'll tell you, there's been some interesting scenarios over the years of some pretty straight-laced dudes that had a couple too many cocktails that we've all been there, right?
Yo, yeah.
SEMA, wow.
We generally weren't trying to extract that information. That information came out when those guys were drinking. Yeah.
I think a little caveat to that was build up your tolerance so that might not be an issue.
That's true. We put the work
about,
How did you know? I mean, you said something about in college getting paid in whiskey. How long have you been into bourbon and shit?
I mean, when I went to the South, that was it. My fraternity roommate is son of a preacher from Lexington, Kentucky. He had a bottle of Buffalo Trace under his pillow on his desk and all that. So we were just drinking, whiskey ginger ales with bourbon, and we were, started just climbing the ladder. And I would always brew beer with my dad and my buddies. And one of my buddies who ran the detailing business with me is a brewmaster locally. And we started taking it to the next level. We bought a still, and we just started boiling the water. Nothing nefarious there, and learning about the process of distillation. That's when the snowball really went downhill. When I started, building a back wall like you guys have in the studio, and the treasure hunting and finding out what I liked, and to the point where I went to a class in Louisville about distillery operations. I thought that was going to be a gig that I would do. Found out that you probably need a spare $25 million to go start a distillery. If you want to make bourbon, that is. If you don't want to make vodka or stuff that I don't like. So I got really into it and just started learning again about how to make it and what makes it special, temperature wise, climate wise. And so I started piecing together a business plan for Washington State. Not a good place to make bourbon. Kentucky and Midwest,
a little different climate.
Yeah. So got to be maybe a little passion and or problem. So relative to over investing in it, but
so what's the bourbon collection look like? It's a little. Is it a little out of control?
Strong to moderately strong.
So I'll say this: when I was practicing the craft in my garage with my buddies, we were buying everything, bought everything we could, and just trying to find out, okay, how old is this brand? How long have they been around? They're charging X amount of money. My brother and I are doing the math backwards. And so at some point I want to say it was probably like 500 plus bottles, but
that's pretty serious.
That's not to say that everything was good, right? It was just, we were learning the marketplace, much like I buy every bottle of spray detailer. A little more expensive to buy bourbon that way. But we weren't finding good stuff anyway, right? Like we're in Washington. So we were just, kind of that muddling, oh, here's a new distillery, we'll pick it up. What I found out I should have been doing is just been going to all the good distilleries and buying their White Dog, their unaged whiskey, and stacking up what we were making compared to that. That would have been a lot cheaper. But I'm kind of over, trying stuff that's net new and really looking towards finding the best I can find and trying not to pay an arm and a leg for it. So like that Rock Hill, when it jumped out at me, I'm like,
gotta have it.
I might be paying $100 more than retail, but I've been waiting 2 years to find it. I'm getting it. It's right there in front of me. Pappy Van Winkle, no, I'm not going to pay for that. I'm not going to do it. I've had it. It's excellent. It is what it is. But, I also won't pay $90 for something that's 4 years old and from a distillery that just came out of nowhere, without like going to the distillery and tasting it before doing it. And that's what I was doing when that collection got a little inflated, was learning, right? Testing the market, learning the product, just the same way I've done here.
So what's your go-to? If you're going to grab something to drink, you got some buddies over, what do you gravitate towards?
So I think this is probably where you guys can start making the same justifications I do. It's like, hey, if it's my brother-in-law, I'm getting something that's 80 proof. If it's like my best friend, I'm getting something that's 110 and we're drinking it straight. So I really like, I think I told you, Jeremy, last year, like 107 is like my favorite proof.
Sure.
And, when you kind of are doing the distillation, you can start seeing the different tastes that come out at different proofs. And that's the one that always, to me, seems to be like the threshold of, if it gets hotter than that, I got to put it on ice. If it's lower than that, I'm not. Yeah, I'm looking for a little punch. So I love Weller 107, that pure Kentucky, like this one that I showed you. This is from Willet.
Yep.
That's a 107 proof. I like that. It's not the best one, but and then I like the Baker 7-year, like a lot of the and a lot of those Booker kind of seasonal releases that are really interesting and all different. So that's kind of what I like. I'll pay $80 for a Booker's, just because each one's just a little bit different and kind of hotter, so you can detune it with a little water if you want.
Yeah, the Booker stuff's generally pretty hot. That's something we haven't had yet on the pod. I mean, I've had it at home. A great presentation. Little wood boxes that they hook you on the.
Yeah, they're all like you said. They're all different too. You got the wedding ring and the thing. I've got, I don't know, probably 4 of them that I haven't drank. You always get them as gifts, and but yeah, I do like. I've been going back to that 107 lately. I was a special reserve guy for so long. Just it's fairly readily available where we're at, and so it's just an easy one to pound.
Special reserve is
special reserve.
You can't find. I haven't seen a bottle of 107 in years.
I know you can't find it. So in the 107, I've started getting into it now, and I realized like, oh, I can't be drinking this like I did the special reserve because I can't replace it near as easy.
Yeah, you gotta save that one. I mean, I stumbled into a couple of them. It's just one of those things where it's like, okay, stash that. And then I went down to Texas. And for some reason, Texas has like Weller everywhere. And you can buy half gallons of special reserve for $50. And then all of a sudden my wife's like, why are these car parts arriving at our house? I'm like, shut up.
Those aren't car parts, honey.
What's on your current hit list? What are you trying to find?
Man, I'd been reading Whiskey Advocate. I think that was like really fun. But right now for me, it's just the thrill of the hunt. I'm not even looking for anything in particular anymore. I'm looking for, I love the E.H. Taylors. I just found like their straight rye recently that was at retail. I'm like, okay, if it's at retail and I can find it, like I'm excited. But we have a bunch of these like establishing stores around here, and you'll go in and they've got like, again, one bottle of 107 with dust on it. They're asking $400 for. It's like, that sucks. Like, what can you do? So
we got a place by us that has everything you could ever want, but it's all $400, $500, $600, $700, and
it's 3 to 5 times over retail. That's just not going to happen. Yeah,
I will say one of the ones I was lusting after forever was the E.H. Taylor 4-grain.
Yep.
And I had a buddy in Tennessee who had a friend who's a distributor, and all of a sudden it showed up at my door. I was like, that is one of the coolest things anybody's ever done.
It's a big timer bottle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We're talking about it for 2 days and I owed him nothing. I was like, that's incredible. But if there's a bourbon god out there, I'd probably like that Weller single barrel. I haven't tried it. I don't know. It's just the one I haven't tried.
I chased it for years. That was the missing link of my Weller collection, and I finally got one, courtesy of Dave Garfield at Garfield's Beverage Warehouse and Liquor Emporium. Yeah. But it completes the collection. I haven't opened it, but we did try it. We stumbled across it at a random bar in Arizona, Scottsdale, when we were at Barrett Jackson, and they were serving it up for inexpensive. It was like a $15 pour, and it's the thing. Chase the bottle, get the bottle, put the bottle on the shelf. I wouldn't recommend opening the bottle.
It's like a don't meet your idol type thing.
Yeah, pretty much. It's not phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean that's where it's at right now, and that same course I was referring to. You guys know John Goolsby, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys sell him some frames for sure. A good friend. Obviously he's on the road. He's a road warrior, and got to know him really well. I had to burst his bubble about Tito's vodka because it was like the one thing they told us the first day we got to this.
It's all he drinks.
Yeah, and he was like, "It's magical," and I was like, "John, I gotta tell you the truth, man. That guy just totally hoodwinked you." It's like he bought grain neutral spirits in tanker trucks from like commercial production, added water to it, ran it through a still once, added water back to it, and sold it as handcrafted, and made it's a $4 billion brand.
Made a fortune.
Dude was brilliant, but it wasn't like growing the potatoes in his backyard. Then he labored to ferment, and I mean it totally burst his bubble. He still drinks it, but they were telling us like that first day in that class that like these spirits ride trends, and vodka was hot in the 2000s. Now bourbon is what everybody wants, and what's going to be next, who knows? But I'm waiting for the steam to come out because I'm still going to be a bourbon drinker. Long after the trend is gone, but it would be nice to be able to find the stuff that I actually enjoy and be able to open that Weller single barrel, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm in it for the long haul for sure on the bourbon side, but
You got 20 years worth of drinking ahead of
yeah,
you.
the
based on your
vodka
bar.
stuff's interesting because there's a lot of great bourbon brands, even Buffalo Trace. I forget the name of their something weeded vodka that they do. Wheatley.
And you were
it's-
big on that Puff Daddy.
Yeah, huge with
Ciroc.
Yeah, oh yeah, so big on it, right?
Yeah.
No, but it's the bourbon companies. They do some really good vodkas. You're used to these mainstream brands, Tito's and Absolute and those. Try messing with some of those bourbon guys. Find the Buffalo Trace one. Makes a great Bloody Mary.
The Wheatley.
Yeah, that's what they tell you at the school. They're like, if you want to make brown stuff, you're going to be cash flow negative for 5 years. So you got to make vodka. You got to make gin. You got to make some sticky type of holdover to get cash flow, and then show off your barrels when you tour your distillery. And or you're buying source stuff from MGP and then just saying, my granddaddy rode out of the mountains on a witch broom and listen to my bourbon story and don't ask me where the bourbon came from,
Just drink it. Shut the fuck up.
Right.
yeah, and pay me $80 a bottle for it. So, yeah, it's an interesting industry. And again, ultimately it's a fun thing. We always talk get in the garage. The garage is your sanctuary. If you like to imbibe in the garage and relax, for me, it's almost always bourbon as opposed to, beer or whatever else. But yeah, it's a fun little hobby. Unfortunately, it's expensive or more expensive than ever now and harder to find stuff. But that's part of the hunt, right? That's part of what
makes you want it even more.
Well, I hope to see you up in Elkhart this weekend. I'll bring something delicious in case I run into you.
Okay, cool.
After track.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, my body's going to be thrashed for sure. So I'll need a little bit of,
yeah, we'll catch you after the race, not before. Let you go into that with a clear head. But good luck out there, man. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Thank you. Yeah, I won my Can-Am race last year, so I got a standard now, but I'm probably gonna, just go out there, have fun. I've got 3 kids now, so the goal is to come back with all 4 wheels and all 4 limbs.
Perfect.
And
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man. It's been great. It's been awesome.
Been a blast.
Yeah, really nice talking to you guys. I'm stoked. You guys make a great product.
Well, I appreciate
Love
it.
that
Man.
Jeep. Love that Jeep.
Glad to hear, dude. Looking forward to visiting you out west there, and hopefully we can catch a ride in that thing and then check out the car collection.
Yeah, I sent you a picture of the next one. The next one's already there for you, and it's a crazy one.
I don't have.
What do we got up next?
pictures.
We got the Lincoln pictures, which obviously badass, but I didn't see what's coming up next for you.
Oh, so this is it's a full size Jeep, but it is one of 3 that came out of New Zealand. It's called an Apache.
Got it right here. Oh,
Yeah. So it's like a Suburban.
I've never seen that
Yeah.
before. Obviously.
Yeah. They made it for the New Zealand Fire Service. And my dad was spending some time in New Zealand and
Damn.
found it for like $6,000. It's a huge piece of shit, but it can take a 3rd row. So, I need a 3rd row now.
The family's growing, huh?
Yeah. And that's like the car I want to, that's the car that I now need to take my family around the country. And it's unique. I was talking to, Daniel down at Jeep Heritage, and he was like, no way. How the hell did you find this? I was like, hey dude, it was $6,000. You could have snagged it up. But that's it coming into the port of Tacoma. So we just got it a little bit ago.
That'd be cool.
Guys, I have to measure that. That one's a unique one.
That one needs
Yeah,
a chassis.
I don't think we've got that one on file.
No, I don't think so.
I don't even know what the hell's under it. I mean, it's a wild piece of history. So, I that's what I would want to do next with you all.
Can't wait, dude. That should be pretty rad. Yeah, these pictures are just coming through, but this is some great stuff.
Yeah, it's got this stuff late.
I think I was sending it. That's the underside of the Jeep. I was like I said, I was kind of slammed, and lady I was interfacing with was asking me for some photos. I finally got them all to you. So
No
last,
problem.
but
We'll get them up there, man. Rad collection, dude. Great chatting with you. Looking forward to seeing you. Good luck this weekend, buddy.
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks
Appreciate
for having me on. And yeah, please open invite anytime you can get up here. I would recommend between July 4th and September 30th, just because if you like seafood and sunshine that isn't humid, it's the best time to come up here.
Perfect.
Yeah, I might be coming up there middle of August. We've got family on my wife's side in Bellevue.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's not too far off, and I'd love to show you around. And my email is nick.griot at griotsgarage.com. Just let me know.
Cool.
Yep. I was interfacing with Jessica at IRONCLAD. So yeah, hit me up anytime, and I'd love to take you guys around.
Cool.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Have a good one. Good luck this weekend.
All right, nice talking to you guys. Again, wonderful business, wonderful production here. Really happy to be a part of it. I really appreciate it.
Right on, man. Take care, dude. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
All right, bye.
Big thanks again to Nick from Griot's Garage. Remember, you can keep up with Nick and Griot's Garage by following on Instagram at Griot's Garage. We got whiskey review. It's time for the whiskey review.
Dun, dun, dun.
We've been drinking a tremendous amount of whiskey since our last review and this review. There's so much to talk about, but I guess we're going to run all the great whiskeys that we've had. We just spent a weekend
All in one.
A weekend in Columbus, Ohio, just crushing our Infinity bottle.
Oh, yeah. We don't review those bottles, though.
Yeah, that's kind of a big deal.
Drinking them on site. We've got to drink them on air. Tell us about this whiskey, Phil.
I don't know anything about this whiskey.
Okay.
So, this whiskey showed up yesterday in an unmarked box to my attention, and then we were trying to figure out where it came from. Got a text today that good customer Matt Saxton went ahead and sent this to us. He is a big aficionado like we are. He was raving about this stuff. Said we got to try it. Let him know and let everyone know what we think. I was kind of excited seeing the finished in honey and whatever that other barrel was.
Well, that'd be the Amburana.
Amburana. We had to Google that.
I think it's a bean. It's a lagoon.
It is a legume. That's a cinnamon and spice flavor to it, which you can definitely taste in the bourbon. A little bit different than normal, but I think really big fan of this. A little initial fireball kind of flavor to it. You taste the cinnamon, you taste the sweet, but then going back, get a lot of good depth and flavor in it.
It's unique. It's one of a kind for sure. Very flavorful.
It
The
was
cinnamon is no joke.
the first bit of flavor. I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. But yeah, after drinking it some more, you start craving it. You're like, oh, I got to have a little bit more of that. It's a good taste. Definitely different.
I was skeptical. Honestly, when it came through, I did not know that it came from Matt. Now, granted, I trust Matt's taste, but when I saw it was Penelope, I was like, that's what we're fucking drinking tonight? We had one in the past, and there's been one sitting up there. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was...
It wasn't
it didn't rate real well, so I was skeptical.
The blue one, the Architect, was pretty good.
Was it?
Yeah. The barrel strength was not great.
But I'm a fan. I'm definitely a fan. It's loaded with flavor.
Kind of borderline on a rye almost, like some of the
It is.
spicier, flavorful ryes.
Well, usually when you see, something like that at the liquor store, it usually has that little description, and it's like, initial cinnamon floods the palate, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay, I'm sure it doesn't really taste like cinnamon at all.
Right.
The cinnamon fucking hits you. It's good.
I think you hit it best. Like afterwards, like you get that good honey, like rich natural honey flavor to it.
Yeah.
It's different and yeah.
It drinks like a
Craving it.
cocktail.
Yeah.
You're right.
100%.
It drinks like a cocktail.
Like a good cocktail.
Yeah,
Something
absolutely.
that's not too fruity.
Right.
That you'd have a second one.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, this drinks like a good cocktail that doesn't have a lot of stuff in it. That's just...
Tasting a lot of the spirit, a little bit of flavor enhancement.
Well, I'm down with it. I'm glad Matt sent that because I probably wouldn't have bought that if it was
Right.
on the shelf, but I love it.
Yeah, it's gonna get a good rating.
What might that rating be, Josh?
What's your review?
I don't know. Tough to put a number on it because it's not a true bourbon. Like you said, it's got a cocktail rye flavor to it.
Straight bourbon whiskey.
It's not a
Says
blend,
so right
huh?
there.
I'd have thought that was some sort of a blend.
I'm gonna go
It's just a cask finished deal.
7.5.
Double cask finish. Phil's got it at a 7.5.
It's a pretty good review. I'm not far off from that. Probably a little lighter. I'm gonna go 7.3, but I like it.
You go a little uniqueness to it.
Yeah.
It's not a daily drinker, but a refreshing change up.
Yeah.
Josh is computing.
Let it hit the palate, Josh.
Tell us how it dances on the tongue.
Here's where I'm at.
Where you at?
Love the taste. I wish it had just a little bit more kick. With that sweetness, I think you could afford a little bit more of a little bit more. It's just a little.
It's a 98 proof, right?
Yeah.
But you're on this proof kick right now. You got to
No,
you have to
I
share
think
that
I've
with the
gotten old.
listeners. Yeah.
I think I've
It's
gotten a
the
little old.
smoking.
100% you've gotten old.
It's the when you smoke a pack a day of menthols, it's like a liner on your mouth.
Do I need
And
more?
your
Burns
esophagus,
everything
you need
off.
10% more proof.
Yeah,
than
no,
the
I've
rest
gotten to
of
where I
us.
like that 107, 110. Right. If this would have more proof, I'd rank it higher. I'm not ranking it low. That's my only downside to it, and I'm going to go 7.3. I'm going to go 7.2. I'm going 7.2.
All right. Well, that's a nice little cluster.
Yeah, it is a nice cluster. It's a great cocktail. If this was a cocktail and you said, hey, I just made you a cocktail, I'd probably rank this higher.
cocktail in a bottle.
Yeah,
you don't
if you
need to do
put-
all the
if you
mixing. You don't have
put-
to buy all the other shit. Just
I
drink
know.
it.
If you
know.
put like an ice sphere in that and like a little
Orange.
orange zest,
Yeah. I'd
And
probably rank
cherry,
it an
you'd be like,
8.2
wow,
or
what a-
8.3.
yeah, what
I probably would.
what a phenomenal
It's all about the
cocktail.
presentation.
Yeah,
then, huh?
I'm going to be honest. I probably would rank it at 8.2 or 8.3 if it was.
It's
yeah.
good stuff.
So
I haven't
it's a
seen,
definite buy it if you can find it.
yeah, I haven't
Oh,
seen it on the
100%.
shelf, but
Matt's
I
out of Texas and the bottle shipped out of California, so I'm gonna guess it's kind of hard to find.
Probably. I would absolutely recommend this for anybody that's getting into it new, or if I've had we talked to a lot of listeners at the show this last weekend, and they're talking about their wives are starting to get into bourbon, right? And oh, she likes this, but she doesn't like this. This is not a disparaging statement, but I would definitely get this for somebody that's getting into it new, especially if your wife is wanting to. This is probably a little bit easier on the palate than some of the bourbons that we have had in the past or like because of the sweetness.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. It's kind of, you know, you got to develop a taste for something. This is a good thing to start developing that taste for, and then you start getting a little bit of something else. But it's
Have
a
you
great
had
bourbon.
the barrel bourbon seagrass rye?
I haven't had the
it's a good
seagrass.
comparison.
Yeah, very similar
Yeah.
to that. It's got a lot of like really good sweet flavor to it. A little bit of cinnamon. A good like change up. I feel it fits like right in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm with you on that one.
You want to talk about Columbus drinking whiskey?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So we
because
had-
you basically just shamed me when I brought it up.
No, I didn't. I said we.
Hey,
can't
you made me feel like
we got to review this.
you hurt my feelings, dude.
Did I?
Honestly, yeah, the way you
I-
treated me.
I said we can't we can't review anything until we drink it on here. We can talk about drinking it. Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll let you talk about the infinity bottle.
No, I honestly don't want to talk about it now.
Oh, I want you
But
to.
go ahead.
Would you talk about the infinity bottle?
If you're gonna ask it nicely, yeah, I'll talk about it.
I was going to tell. So on Saturday night, I think it was Saturday night. One of those nights where we had drank what we're going to talk about in a minute, but great group of guys, friends, customers. We had too much bourbon.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm not saying the quantity, the quantity was bad, but that would have been bad anyway. It was so many different things. I started counting up the next morning because it was just, hey, have you tried this? You need to try that. Yeah, I've had that before. We'll drink it anyway. We'll try this. That's new. I've never tried. Kill it. Here you go. Want some more? Literally, I probably did in the teens of different bourbons on Saturday night. Holy shit.
This is a rough morning.
It was fine.
Yeah,
but
dude, you look like shit. Sunday morning.
Did I?
And it carried over. Like, even, it's crazy because all day Sunday, even into Monday. And then today.
What day is today?
On like
Tuesday.
Tuesday
Yeah.
morning, still, it's like, Jesus, what the fuck? He just looks like shit.
I think it's the drinking.
Honestly, I'm questioning whether it is or not at this point because it seems
Does it
either
look the same before,
either
though?
there
Yeah,
was
Friday
a
morning, how did it
permanent
look?
reaction to it, and now that's just the way.
But I didn't look like that beforehand?
No, well, it's hard to say for sure. I might,
You don't remember
yeah, because I drank a little too, so I don't remember.
I got you.
Yeah,
We did have a good time, though.
we had a great time.
We did bring out the infinity bottle, right?
Yeah,
Tell us
it was
about the
good.
infinity bottle.
The infinite bottle was good. We can review it on here because we only talk about the bottles.
No, we
That we
only
drink on the
We only
podcast.
review them. We can talk about it and set it up that we're going to review it on the podcast.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we made 2 bottles of it. Somebody had the foresight to say, let's make 2 bottles
That would be you.
of this.
Do you know where the other bottle's at?
It's on my desk.
Oh,
Yeah.
sweet.
But it was very good. We'll dive into it because it's a very unique blend. And it was cool, like having Aaron on here from Smoke Wagon, who's a master blender. And
He
we-
told us we shouldn't have done it.
And he was, in a sense, he was probably right? But what else are you going to do? You're either going to throw it away. But it wasn't bad. It's interesting to taste all those mixed together. Would it be?
Was it similar to an around the world, like when you go to the fountain drink?
To
and
be
get a
honest
little bit
with
of
you, I
everything?
think those are better. Yeah.
No, it was so weird.
But it wasn't bad.
I think it was Fuddruckers is the
It was, yeah,
exclusive around
Without
the
a
world.
review, I'm being honest, and you tell me if I'm wrong. And instantly, when you like smell and drink that first sip, like we talked about this with the sweetness, instantly you're like, oh wow, this is gonna be amazing. It's got that very high end and or old taste. Great. And then, right as your mind is processing that, there's this like bad, like weird
flavor.
flavor that it's just almost like a smell more than it is a flavor, and it's kind of like, oh, and it's not bad. It's just like things mixed up, and then after that,
You're selling it really hard.
no,
No,
and then after that, you start like, I would go back, and then it starts smoothing out. Like my second glass, I actually enjoyed.
It's interesting enough that I would rate it. I wouldn't rate it low. It's good.
Right.
It'll rate up there, and it would probably fall under a buy it if that was a bourbon that you could get. But it's not my favorite. I'll say that.
Spencer was convinced that the 32 ounces that we put in there hadn't been mixed up yet. So every time we poured it, he was just
different
getting
flavor?
a different bourbon.
It just floated.
8-hour drive there didn't.
Yeah. Again, I'm just saying he was convinced. He had a few too, though, at that point. But
Was he tasting it off of his mustache?
It is probably a different tasting experience for him. It lingers on the stash.
yeah, and he probably had a little beard oil in. It probably tainted.
It's
probably a little taint oil on
probably
there,
a
too.
variety. Who knows what's in that thing?
Speaking of
That caterpillar on his lip.
this is good though. We had some nice gifts given to us at the show.
Yeah, we got plenty of good stuff to be drinking on upcoming episodes.
Unfortunately, a couple of them didn't make it.
Yeah, well, because
We
the
drank
drinking,
them
the
that
drinking did get out of control Saturday night.
If you give us a bottle on Friday at the show,
Give it to
that's
us.
great.
Yeah, give it to us on Sunday.
Come to us Friday. Hey, this is awesome. You're going to love this on the podcast. Guess what? It goes into a vehicle. We go to the hotel parking lot. Friday night, we're drinking. What do you think we did?
You drank it.
We drank some of those bottles. Yeah.
And then we were searching for him because we had several vehicles that we drove there. Yeah. So between Josh and I, we were trying to remember where we stashed them all. I'm like, dude, there was like the canteen one, the Montana like thing. Where is that? Well, I think I put some of it in the back seat of the Nova. And sure enough, that was the lone survivor.
Yeah.
We cracked that open. It's pretty good.
John Jackson been talking about tequilas, and he's like, oh, I got a tequila you got to try. I'm like, oh, I got one you got to try, which I forgot to send to him or forgot to give to you guys. So he texted me on like Thursday. He's like, hey, I got this tequila. It's a pretty high-end, like rare one. What should I do with it so the guys don't kill it this weekend before you get to it?
Oh, you son of a bitch. You had
Yeah, it's right there.
I was
That's what
wondering
was
where
in the toolbox of the
Yeah.
trailer. I thought fucking Brian was snaking it.
I told him I said, give it to Brian, the driver, and tell everybody else that it's horrible and it's a gag gift and they won't drink it.
That's bullshit. We'd have drank that.
I'd have fucking killed it. I'd have drank it to the bottom.
Yeah, because I know you two assholes.
And then I'd have filled it back up with Tito's.
Yeah, we could have told you all about. We could have reviewed it and told you how good it was.
I thought Brian had gotten a gift and was hiding it from us. Because I saw it in there when I was trying to get coffee one morning. I forgot to ask. Well, that was nice of him. But you forgot to send the one to give to him?
I did.
So we should have, Jeremy, and John Jackson should have drank that tequila since you didn't send him his.
No, I'm going to send it to him. The problem is John's like a fucking nomad, so I don't know where to send it.
Doesn't he have a
It's gonna be
PO
like-
box somewhere?
Yeah, you got to send it to a P.O. box in like Nebraska. You know, swing through.
Albuquerque.
Yeah, what's the fucking?
Turkey.
Yeah, what's the place in New Mexico? Roswell. That's. I feel like that's his central hub.
You think so?
That's probably his main PO box, Roswell, New Mexico.
Roswell. Probably.
We went there on the road tour, remember?
Yeah,
That's,
that's where they get
that's
Yeah.
a shitty place.
fucking aliens.
Yeah.
Thought it was going to be cool, but yeah.
No,
Now they got aliens there.
if they didn't have the aliens,
Yeah.
Right, but they do. Dude, there's
well, no, they got stores that sell shit about
yeah,
aliens.
because
They
there
don't-
was because there was an
I
alien.
don't think that that's true.
Why the hell do they have the stores that sell them everywhere?
What else are they going to do out there?
I don't know.
Valid.
Had to come up with something. What are we even doing?
It's time to go home, dude. It's time to fucking go home.
Time to go. Thanks for listening to Oil and Whiskey, an Ironclad original. If you like the show, be sure to leave us a rating and review. And I'll be honest with you, we're a little light on the reviews. We're getting great ratings. Good on
not,
the ratings.
Not thirsty or asking for it at all there.
Where would
No,
one?
I'm-
Where would
yeah, I'm gonna
one
explain.
leave a review, Josh?
Well, I don't know.
So maybe that's the problem.
I don't know where you go to leave. I just know that I see the reviews, and I haven't seen a lot of new reviews lately.
Where do you see the reviews? Is there a website? Podcastreviews.com.
You leave them on the Spotify
Oh, you can do
or
that?
Apple.
Okay.
If you want to hear more Florida Georgia Line,
No, I like to. We got great ratings and a lot of them. I like reading the reviews.
do you?
Everybody always puts something funny in there.
Rogan, I thought, said it best when he said, "Don't read the fuck comments."
No, I'm not reading the comments. I'm reading the review.
Those
reviews.
are the
Same thing.
No, the review is saying, "Hey, I'm reviewing your show," and they've got good stuff in there. It's all kind of stop fidgeting with the pens. You look stupid.
I read one.
Jeremy's
once.
super fucking mean. How do you deal with Jeremy? He's so mean.
I read one once that said you suck.
Really?
Yeah, it was like Josh.
I didn't see
sucks.
that one.
Yeah.
Maybe don't leave any reviews then. If you're going to say people suck. Thanks again to our guest, Nick Griot. We'll see you again next week.